Chapter 101. Although all the little wizards expected that the final exam would come one day late, time was fair to everyone, so the exam time finally arrived. The first grade test questions were very easy for Ryan and Hermione, and they easily won the praise of all the teachers. But on the other side, life was not easy for Ron and Harry. Although the seniors helped with the surprise review before the exam, when they saw the serious eyes of the professors, their minds went blank. After the exam, no matter how well they did, all the little wizards felt relaxed, and the thousand-year-old magic castle returned to its former bustle. Hermione seemed to have exhausted her love for books due to the review plan she had made, and she took Ryan around the entire castle in the past 2 days. It was the last day of this school year, and when the little wizards entered the dining hall, they found that the dining hall was filled with Slytherin house flags. Except for the little wizard from Slytherin who instantly became elated, the little wizards from the other 3 houses looked a little disappointed and frustrated. The entire restaurant echoed with the laughter of the Slytherin snakes, because today would be the day they won the House Cup for 8 consecutive years. Everyone at the Gryffindor table was ignoring Harry and Ron, and there were not many wizards sitting around them. But neither of them cared. They were discussing the amazing adventure last night. I dare to believe that it will definitely be an adventure that will amaze every Gryffindor. Ron pulled Harry and whispered. He still can't believe that he was actually involved in the incident between the mysterious man and the Sorcerer's Stone. Yes, I can't believe it either. Harry looked very excited at this time. Being born in the Muggle world, he could never imagine such a wonderful adventure. Okay, please be quiet. Dumbledore stood up and glanced in the direction of the Slytherin table as he spoke. I know everyone is hungry. In fact, I am also very hungry, but there are some things that need to be explained before that. Now, we need to conduct the Academy Cup award ceremony first. The specific scores of each academy are as follows: 4th place, Glenfendo, 230 points, 3rd place, Hufflepuff, 350 points. The little lions at the Gryffindor table lowered their heads. They did not expect that their own house was more than 100 points lower than the 3rd place. When Dumbledore read Slytherin, the Slytherin table erupted in cheers. But there are a few things recently that I think should be included. First of all, Mr. Ron Weasley, he played the most wonderful game of chess in Hogwarts in many years, so here I want to reward Gran. 70 points to Findo Academy. The Gryffindor table instantly erupted in cheers that were even louder than those of Slytherin just now. Next is Mr. Neville Longbottom. It takes courage to deal with the enemy, but it also takes courage to stand your ground in front of your friends. So I am here to award 30 points to Gryffindor House. The little lions are even crazier, they are now a full 100 points taller. And there will definitely be a reward for Mr. Potter next, they suddenly feel that they are so close to the Academy Cup. Finally, Mr. Harry Potter. His fearlessness and courage shocked the world, so I would like to reward him with 150 points. After speaking, Dumbledore took the lead in applauding. Suddenly, the entire restaurant burst into applause, except for Slytherin and Snape. Snape stared at Harry hard, with indescribable disgust in his eyes. The little snakes at the Slytherin table were immediately discouraged. They felt helpless that Dumbledore was so partial to Gryffindor. Okay, it seems that the decoration in the restaurant needs to be changed. Dumbledore clapped his hands, and the Slytherin flag flying in the restaurant instantly turned into the Gryffindor flag. Okay, kids, enjoy your dinner. The little wizards suddenly felt that tonight's meal was particularly delicious, except for Slytherin and Snape. The next morning, the little wizards will have a thrilling experience as soon as they open their eyes. Their report cards are placed on everyone's bedside by the house elves all night long. So you can see the scene, some little wizards are happily packing their things, while some are packing their things slowly, sighing from time to time. Of course, a notice was issued with the transcripts prohibiting the use of wands outside of school. How was it? Hermione asked, her tone full of pride as she sat on the boat heading to Hogsmeade Station. How about what? Ryan was a little confused. I'm talking about the results. Have you forgotten our bet? Hermione pursed her lips. Of course not. I got 6 O's. What about you? Me too, what about the bet? Hermione looked a little disappointed. How about, both sides win? Ryan said weakly. Hermione nodded, okay. This can be regarded as a victory over Ryan, right? Etc. Hermione suddenly thought of the content of the bet, and a blush suddenly appeared on her fair face. So what are you waiting for? Ryan looked at Hermione with a smile and said in a teasing tone. The little girl suddenly became shy. Well, it's better to just count you as the winner. How can that be possible? We both have the same score. No matter how you calculate it, I can't be considered the winner. Ryan continued to say with a smile. After a discussion between Ryan and Hermione, the little girl finally shyly gave Ryan a bite on the face after getting on the train. After an afternoon passed, the train finally arrived at King's Cross Station. Ryan, don't you need my dad to take you back? Hermione stood on the platform and said to Ryan while carrying her suitcase. No, Hermione. I'll probably be away from home this summer. As for my home, I'll leave it to you. By the way, this is for you. As he said that, Ryan took out a long box and handed it to Hermione. This is a small box that can isolate the magic power fluctuations. If you go to my house to read a book, just ask Pudding to take you there. If you put the wand in it at this time, the magic power fluctuations will not be detected. Hermione nodded. Ryan had already told her about the existence of Pudding. Okay, I think I have to start my trip. I will write to you every day. Ryan waved to Hermione and disappeared on the platform. Hermione looked at the place where Ryan disappeared and couldn't help but sigh. She also wanted to leave and appear at will so casually, but she still couldn't do it with her current strength. However, Hermione was not discouraged. It was Ryan's presence that gave her the motivation to continue studying. Chapter 102. Ryan appeared in a forest in a park, and his original robes turned into thoughtful and comfortable casual clothes. This is the town at the entrance to the ruins, and it is also the town where Favo and Ryan lived in seclusion. Welcome, Ryan, welcome to this beautiful and warm town. I promise you, you will fall in love with it. Perhaps it was because it was rare for wizards to come as guests, so Favo was very enthusiastic. I'm very happy too, Favo, I like the atmosphere here very much. Ryan hugged Favo and patted Favo on the back. By the way, come in and sit down. After the two hugged each other, Favo realized that the two were still standing at the door talking. With that said, Favo opened the door and walked in first, followed by Ryan. Don't think that this means that Favo is reassured by Ryan. On the contrary, it means that Ryan is reassured by Favo, or that Ryan is confident in his own strength. For old wizards like Favo, Ryan believed that their lairs must be run by them like iron barrels. After all, a wizard of this age experienced the first wizarding war and survived, which speaks volumes. Favo turned around and looked at Ryan, who followed him in, with a hint of appreciation in his eyes. Through his conversations with Ryan, Favo realizes that Ryan is not naive or stupid. What do you want to drink? Tea, coffee, hot cocoa? Of course, you can also drink some wine if you want. An Eastern friend of mine once crossed the Eurasian continent and sent me a bottle of good wine. The taste is, tisk tisk. Would you like a drink? Favo smacked his mouth, looking like he had endless aftertaste. A cup of iced coffee would be nice. Ryan declined Favo's suggestion that he should try one. All right. Favo nodded with some disappointment, then snapped his fingers, and a series of pinging, banging, banging sounds came from the kitchen. Ryan was astonished by what he saw. Just the silent magic casting without a wand was enough to impress Ryan. You must know that Favo does not have the knowledge of other worlds that Ryan has. The fact that he can advance his magic level to this point by relying solely on the resources of this world is enough to prove Favo's talent. About 3 minutes later, a cup of steaming coffee flew through the air and landed accurately in front of Ryan. Try it quickly. This is the recipe I found in ancient books. It tastes great. Favo said kindly, and then a cup of hot coffee fell in front of him. Sorry, I'm old and my stomach hurts when I drink something cold. Favo smiled, added 2 more spoons of sugar to his coffee cup, stirred it twice, blew on it, and then took a nice sip. Showing an expression of enjoyment. Ryan also picked up the coffee and took a sip. Ryan's eyes lit up slightly. This coffee is pretty good. Thinking about it, Ryan took 2 more sips. How's it going? Not bad. Favo said with some pride as he watched Ryan take 2 more sips. Ryan put down the cup and nodded, not feeling embarrassed about his actions just now. Squeak! The sound of the door opening reached the room, which made Ryan sit up straight in an instant, and magic power had already surged to the pendant on his chest. Ryan, how many times have I told you, don't just push the door in, it will make the police think you are breaking into the house. Do you know the Bill of Rights? Even if the king comes, he has to knock on the door and get my permission. Enter. Favo said with a smile, without any hint of anger. The police won't think I'm forcing my way into a house, they'll just think I'm going home. Besides, we are wizards, Favo, not kings. I'm not those bastards from Malfoy who even gave up the dignity of wizards for the sake of the land. Just give it up. Ryan's voice came from outside. Then there was the sound of opening wine bottles and pouring wine. Dong dong dong. There was a sound of knuckles tapping on the wooden board, and then Ryan walked in holding a wine glass. Look, I even knocked on the door. After saying that, Ryan took a sip of the wine in the wine glass. Oh, are you the boy from that day? It's been a long time since we last seen each other. Hello, Ryan. Ryan smiled and nodded to Ryan. I'm fine, thank you. Would you like some? There's no such wordiness as Doris here. Ryan raised the wine glass in his hand and said to Ryan. I'm not old enough to drink, Ryan. Really? I thought you were already in 7th grade and ready to find a good job. Favo said with some surprise. So what do you want to do now? Do you want to take risks? I think you must be a Gryffindor. Ryan was also surprised. Only Gryffindor always wants to adventure in the outside world. The little wizards of Hufflepuff are always happy. They are the favorite employees of Diagon Alley. The little wizards of Ravenclaw I always like to work in bookstores and libraries. Slytherin guys do some work under the arrangements of their fathers and never come out. Ryan smiled and did not explain. Because if you explain it, it will be more troublesome. If you talk about adventure, then the Lost Stone Forest in the northern part of the country is a good place to go. Some people have seen mysterious magical creatures there, but the strange thing is that the creatures everyone sees have different appearances. Favo said. Some people speculate that it may be a strange shape-shifting creature, but fortunately, so far, there has been no news of anyone being injured in the Lost Stone Forest. Mysterious Stone Forest? Ryan asked curiously. Yes. Ryan nodded. Are you a little wizard of Muggle origin? Ryan nodded, not afraid of being disliked by Favo and Ryan. Judging from their attitude towards getting along with Muggles, we can see that these two do not hate Muggles, but rather admire them. There is a natural Muggle shielding spell there, or it may have been established by a powerful wizard. Who can say for sure? In short, it is a place where Muggles cannot see. But you should be able to see it when you get there. I can see it. Seeing that Ryan didn't understand, Ryan gave him some information. No, Ryan, I saw its introduction in the school library. I was just curious that you would recommend it. I thought you would recommend other places. Ha ha ha, kid, don't be too ambitious. There is not much danger there. It not only satisfies your curiosity, but also ensures your safety. Is this your first time to go out on an adventure? Your first adventure will be a success. Success, this is a good sign. Favo said with a smile. It's a pity that I still want to go out and experience things with my old bones. It's a pity that when people get old, they don't want to move anymore. Favo's words were a little low. Chapter 103. Ryan stayed in Favo's house for one night, and when he left the next day, Favo gave him a tent that he must have used on adventures in his youth. This is a tent that has been casted with a traceless stretching spell. It has 2 bedrooms, a living room, a kitchen, and a bathroom, totaling 70 square meters in size. It is enough for Ryan to live a good life in the wild by himself. Ryan also put several flint stones found in Gunter's old house in the kitchen so that he could boil some hot water. After Ryan came out of Favo's house, he found a deserted alley, and then apparat to the town next to the Lost Stone Forest. He needs to resupply here before entering the Lost Stone Forest. Thanks to the Stone Forest, many expedition teams or explorers come here every year to explore the mystery of the Lost Land. Therefore, Ryan's purchase of supplies did not attract the attention of the locals, but a few ants who were obviously physically stout shook their heads, secretly thinking that another young man was stunned. In fact, there is no lost land. It's just that the Muggles entered the Muggle shielding spell and didn't realize it, but the machine recorded it truthfully. So it can be strange when people find themselves walking down a path they didn't realize they were on. Of course, it is not that no one has made speculations about this phenomenon, but there are still many opinions. Over time, this place became a favorite place for explorers and wizards. Of course, this has nothing to do with Ryan. He did not come here to decipher the secrets of the Lost Stone Forest, but simply wanted to come here to take a look. After finishing his shopping, Ryan rested for a night in a local hotel. Early the next morning, in order to cover up, Ryan picked up the small backpack and walked into the forest. Soon, Ryan discovered a wave of magic in front of him. It was a Muggle shielding spell. When you walk in, the first thing you see is some strange-shaped stones, some low, some tall, some wide, some narrow, densely packed, filling the entire field of view. Ryan stood at the door and looked carefully for a while, then dropped a magic mark and walked inside. The magic mark is so that if danger really occurs, Ryan can return here instantly. After all, even disembodiment takes time to react. Ryan did not encounter any danger along the way, but this was normal, because the wizards who encountered mysterious magical creatures only saw them at night. The Lost Stone Forest looked very majestic during the day. Looking at the towering stones around him, Ryan couldn't help but cast his exploration skills. Ryan quickly obtained information about the Lost Stone Forest. This is the place where ancient wizards used to test the character of their juniors. No one tells them what they are going to face before they come to the test. The elders will bring the juniors here with the excuse of going out to see the world. Then in the Lost Stone Forest, the elders will mysteriously disappear, leaving the juniors alone. The design of the Lost Stone Forest also ensures that the juniors will not go out before night falls, which leaves room for subsequent designs. After night falls, the magic circle in the Lost Stone Forest will be activated, automatically reading the things that everyone is most afraid of, and then quietly appearing next to him. However, due to the passage of time, there seem to be some problems with the magic circle. Now it can no longer directly reflect what everyone is most afraid of, but randomly selects one thing. Ryan walked in the Lost Stone Forest and looked at this ancient monument that had existed for thousands of years. He couldn't help but sigh that the power of the ancient wizards still existed in the world even after thousands of years. Time passed slowly and night fell quietly. Ryan suddenly found that the magic around him suddenly turned aside, and a strange magic began to surround him. This is quite different from today's magic. Ryan thought to himself. Nowadays, the magic is more sophisticated, and there is no sight of magic surrounding the person being detected. Ryan quietly relaxed his mind, and the magic power immediately probed Ryan's mind, and then withdrew. Immediately afterwards, Ryan noticed that something seemed to be getting closer and closer behind him. Turning around, he saw that it was his father in his previous life who was stabbing his mother into his body while he was still young in his previous life and could only cry on the sidelines. As Ryan watched this scene, his eyes turned red involuntarily, his hands clenched tightly, and his fingers began to turn white due to excessive exertion. But soon, this illusion disappeared. Ryan was breathing heavily. He almost couldn't bear the hatred in his heart and used magic just now. But now it seems that at least the result is good. Ryan thought so, and then took out the tent, intending to have a good sleep. Although Ryan thought he was fine, in fact he was not fine. He needed a sleep to calm his inner turmoil. However, what Ryan didn't expect was that this magic circle obviously had no intention of letting him go. At night when Ryan was sleeping, that magic appeared next to Ryan again. "Kid, I was wrong, I was just drunk at the time." The phantom was dismissed by Ryan before he finished speaking. Ryan sat on the bed, frowning, with a little impatience in his eyes. However, no one would be bored if they were woken up late at night and told to watch something they disliked the most. Well. Ryan sighed heavily. He knew that this was actually not a creature at all, but a magic circle that reflected his own inner fluctuations, so there was no good way to do this. If any creature dares to do this, Ryan vows to let him know the power of magic. However, this magic circle itself is already linked to the mysterious stone forest, so if you want to modify the magic circle, you must modify the layout of the entire mysterious stone forest. Gone. Ryan thought for a long time and finally decided to leave the Lost Stone Forest. He knew that as long as he was still here, the magic would eventually find him. Because the wizards who have explored before have also encountered these situations, experience shows that as long as the second phantom appears, it means that you will not be able to sleep well tonight. Thinking of this, Ryan quickly packed up his tent, returned to the original town, and found a hotel to stay in. It wasn't until the early morning of the next day that Ryan entered the Lost Stone Forest with his backpack on his back again. Today I entered the Lost Stone Forest not for anything else, but for some searching. Over the past 1,000 years, wizards have continued to come to explore, and Ryan did not believe that there was nothing good left here. In addition, this mysterious stone forest itself has rewards for wizards who succeed in the challenge, but the previous wizards did not receive it. Chapter 104. According to the feedback from the exploration technique, Ryan came to a huge stone located in the northwest of the Lost Stone Forest, where the rewards for clearing the level were collected. Ryan stood in front of the stone and touched up and down before discovering a small secret door on the back of the stone, where the rewards for clearing the level were stored. The interests of ancient wizards are really unique. Ryan couldn't help but said, I don't know how I came up with the idea to design such a thing. What Ryan is sure of is that no one would have thought that there would be a reward here unless the elders informed them in advance. Of course, it is not ruled out that a very lucky person accidentally discovered it or a little wizard who searched carefully after destroying the phantom produced by the magic circle. And every wizard who clears the level will receive a reward. If you don't take it, your reward may be taken away by the next discoverer. Perhaps the ancient wizards just wanted to find some wizards with willpower, perseverance, and luck. But this couldn't stop Ryan, who had probing skills. Ryan put his hand in, touched it, and showed a satisfied smile. There were a lot of things inside, so Ryan took them all out and placed them all over the floor. First, there were a few pieces of parchment. In fact, there should be more, but more than half of the parchment had long since lost its original function due to wind and water erosion. The remaining pictures appear to have appeared in recent times. There are some things written on it that Ryan can't understand. In fact, these are just a few spells, but they were prepared for the trial wizards thousands of years ago. Thousands of years are enough time for a language to undergo earth-shaking changes, so it's normal that Ryan can't understand it. Then came several potion bottles, with no liquid left in them. If the bottle is considered an antique, then Ryan may still be able to sell it for some money. Thousands of years of time have made everything so fragile. Several good-looking alchemy items had already broken into several pieces the moment Ryan touched them. As for the other items, they don't even exist anymore. Ryan put the parchment paper with legible writing into his space bag, and buried the rest of the garbage in the soil. After doing all this, Ryan returned to the town. He has no intention of explaining all this publicly. The most important thing is that it is too troublesome to explain. First of all, the question why do you know is difficult to explain. Ryan lay on the bed and stretched out comfortably, and then he was disturbed by a beep beep sound. Ryan turned over and didn't want to pay attention, but the sound sounded again and again. In the end, Ryan sat up with some annoyance, wanting to see what the sound was. Pace. Looking at Pace, who was pecking at the glass with his beak, Ryan said with some confusion. He stood up, walked to the window and opened it to let Pace fly in. Pace flew in and landed on the table in the room, gave Ryan a hard look, then raised his feet and took out a letter. It's a holiday, who will write to me? Ryan said doubtfully, rubbing his chin. First, exclude the three brothers and Pudding, because they can use their own owls to write letters. Hold the straw. Ryan shouted the moment he saw the signature of the letter. This is from Hermione. I will write to you every day. Ryan thought about what he and Hermione said on the platform. Damn it, why did you forget it all of a sudden? Ryan suddenly felt that the letter in his hand was very hot. He wanted to throw it away, but after thinking about the consequences of throwing it away, he held back. Pace was growing impatient because Hermione didn't feed him his favorite nuts, and Ryan obviously didn't remember either. Cuckoo. Pace waited for a while and found that Ryan hadn't moved yet, so he couldn't help shouting, wanting to remind Ryan. Meanwhile, Ryan was happily writing to Hermione. In her mind, Hermione did not blame Ryan for breaking his promise, but asked where Ryan was now. When Ryan saw the content of the letter, he immediately breathed a sigh of relief. He took out a pen and paper and began to reply to Hermione seriously, telling Hermione about the stone forest with slight modifications. He didn't mention anything like the phantom produced by the magic circle. He only said that he had encountered the mysterious magical animal. Pace, will this letter, Pace? After Ryan finished writing the letter, he stood up and prepared for Pace to send it back. However, what he saw was Pace's back. Pace was standing on the top of the table, looking out the window, motionless, his back looking indescribably desolate. Alas, it's so difficult to be an owl. You have to wake up early and sleep late every day, sleeping in the open air, to deliver letters, even all year round. You have to call out whenever something happens. Just like this, I can't even eat a few of my beloved owl nuts. I can't live this day. Pace looked at the scenery outside the window and kept thinking in his heart. Suddenly, Pace seemed to see nuts raining from the sky. Suddenly, Pays felt desolate in his heart. I actually missed nuts so much. Pays suddenly felt very pitiful until a nut hit him on the head. Pays raised his head strangely, and then he saw Ryan holding a bag of owl nuts and scattering them on top of his head. Ryan also saw Pays turning his head and smiled at it. He knew that Pays was angry because he didn't feed it. However, Ryan only felt that his eyes flashed, and the bag of owl nuts and the scattered eyes disappeared in his hand. Then, with lightning speed, Pays stretched out his head and took the letter from Ryan's hand. With a clang sound, it smashed through the glass and flew away. Ryan looked at all this in surprise, a little unbelievable. He couldn't believe that he had raised such a shameless bird. However, the window in front of me still needs to be repaired. Ryan raised his hand and clicked on the broken window. It was like going back in time, and the scattered glass shards returned to their original positions along the trajectory they had just scattered. Looking at his masterpiece in front of him, Ryan nodded with satisfaction, then turned his head to pack his things. He did gain something from his trip to the Lost Stone Forest, but it was far from big. And the vacation has just begun, so he still has a lot of time to spend. Ryan didn't have many things, so after simply packing them up, Ryan returned the hotel room. So, where to go next? Ryan walked out of the town and said, looking at the path leading into the distance. Forget it, never mind, wherever you go. Since there was no clear destination, Ryan decided to leave the matter to God. He raised his hand and disappeared on this country road in an instant. Chapter 105. Because it was a random apparition, Ryan didn't know where he was teleported to. Maybe it's domestic, maybe it's foreign, maybe it's a desert, maybe it's a glacier. Ryan opened his eyes and found himself in the forest. The smell of rotten leaves was still fresh in Ryan's memory. I hope Pays won't be too angry when he finds me. Ryan looked around and couldn't help but smile bitterly. Ryan is not worried about anything else, he is just afraid that he will come to Asia. Although Pays has the blood of magical creatures, sending messages across the Eurasian continent is still very difficult for an owl that is more than 1 year old. And one day was simply not enough time for Pays to make a round trip, which meant that his agreement with Hermione could not be fulfilled at all. Ryan observed for a while and found that something was wrong with this forest. It's so quiet. A normal forest, not to mention too noisy, would at least have some small animals. But this forest is too quiet. So far, Ryan has not seen a single animal. This forest is like a silent world, swallowing everything. Ryan decided to look around. The strangeness here aroused Ryan's curiosity. Unusual places must have unusual things or unusual reasons. This is definitely a strong attraction for a wizard with a strong thirst for knowledge. Ryan cast an armor spell on himself. The advantage of the iron armor curse is that it can defend against physical damage and does not require continuous input of magic power, and it will not affect movement. After carefully walking in the forest for a while, Ryan became more and more strange. The trees and so on here are all normal, and Ryan also noticed the traces left by large carnivores here. For example, the claw marks on the trees, the crushed vegetation, etc., all proved that there were no creatures in this forest, but they all disappeared for some reason. According to scientific research, there is obviously no such powerful method that can eliminate all the animals in a forest, so there may be only one left. A wizard is doing something. Magic detection. Ryan, who wanted to understand, instantly released this spell to detect the flow of magic power. As expected by Ryan, there wasn't much magic in the air, just a faint layer. But at the other end of the forest there is a source of magic that far exceeds the magic of the environment. Could it be a magical creature? Ryan secretly guessed. Apart from magical creatures, Ryan couldn't think of any other possibilities. It should be magical creatures like wolves, tigers, and leopards. Ryan thought as he looked at the claw marks on the tree. In fact, Ryan is more inclined to tigers, because the claw marks on the trees are large and don't look like creatures like wolves and leopards. However, there are many wonders in the wizarding world, and Ryan didn't tell them all. Although no one knows, I will feel embarrassed. Ryan stood up, dusted himself off, and looked up at the source of magic in the distance. Light body technique. Quick thinking. The light body technique can make your body light, and your quick thinking can speed up your reaction, allowing you to avoid oncoming branches and stones on the ground in the complex forest environment. Driven by the spell, Ryan arrived 500 meters away from the magic source. If you move any further, you may disturb the other party. Don't doubt the sense of smell of magical creatures. The presence of magic makes everything about them extraordinary. The breath is restrained. Ryan cancelled the effect of the light body spell and instead cast a breath-condensing spell to ensure that he would not be discovered. However, this spell has a disadvantage, that is, you can only move forward slowly after casting the spell. If the speed is too fast, the effect of the spell will be greatly reduced. However, at a distance of 500 meters, Ryan didn't take much time to get closer. The magic source has not moved from just now to now. Ryan guessed that this magical animal should be resting. However, when Ryan secretly poked his head out and was about to take a look at the culprit that made the entire forest so quiet, he realized that there were no magical animals in front of him, but only a small wooden house. The cabin was dilapidated and the walls looked like they were made of tattered boards. The whole house has no chimney or windows, and the only thing connected to the outside world is the door at the entrance. There are no fences around the house. There are some vegetables growing sparsely in front of the door, but unfortunately the owner seems unwilling to take care of them. Weeds grow among the vegetables. Rather than saying that there are some weeds growing among the vegetables, it is better to say that there are a few vegetables among the weeds. Just as Ryan was looking around, the door of the house was opened, and a middle-aged man with a pale face walked out. His hair was grey, like the hair of a grey wolf, hanging down on his scalp. The eye sockets were sunken deeply, and the eyes were bloodshot. The thick dark circles around his eyes indicate that this gentleman may not have had a good sleep in the past few days. He was very thin, with just bones underneath his skin, and no trace of flesh could be seen on his body. The fingers were slender, not looking like the hands of a middle-aged man at all. As the middle-aged man moved around, Ryan found that in his eyes, the source of magic power also moved with the man. All this shows that the man is the source of magic power, which means that everything in this forest is more or less related to the man in front of him. "Hello, have you always lived here?" Ryan removed his spell and walked up to ask. The man was obviously taken aback. He didn't seem to think that someone could avoid his perception. "Hello." He opened his mouth, and his voice sounded like the sound of an old trumpet. He looked extremely nervous, and it was obvious that Ryan was the one who suddenly appeared. "It's very dangerous here. You should leave quickly." Before Ryan could speak, the man started talking again. "Hello, I don't know anything, get out of here quickly." His voice was much more powerful than before. "I just want to know, what happened here?" "Nothing has happened here. Please leave now. This is my house and I have the right to ask you to leave." Not cooperative at all. Ryan thought to himself. But this also shows from the side that the anomaly in this forest must be related to him. Ryan's interest became even greater. What makes the man in front of me so afraid and cursed? Dark magic? Seal? The slightly raised corners of Ryan's mouth told the man that his drive did not get the result he wanted. He began to look a little irritable, his nails began to slowly grow longer, and his eyes began to become bloodshot. Chapter 106. Ryan immediately discovered something was wrong with the other party, and quickly distanced himself, opening the magic shield at the same time. "Why? Why can't you let me die slowly here alone? Why do people always come to disturb my life? I have obviously tried so hard to avoid crowds." The middle-aged man choked as he spoke, but the grey hair on his head was spreading crazily on his body. After a while, his body was covered with fluffy grey hair. His originally thin body became extremely strong at this time, and his sharp claws shone with a cold light. His eyes were already red, filled with violence and murderous intent. "Wait, I just want to ask where this is." Ryan shouted. He was not that kind of fighting maniac. However, all he received in response was a roar. Damn it! Ryan felt extremely bad. He saw the scene he least wanted to see in the Lost Stone Forest 2 days ago, and today he was forced to start another battle. And in a place with complex terrain like a forest, humans are definitely at a disadvantage compared to beasts. And if Ryan doesn't want the Ministry of Magic to know what's going on here, he can't use some spells that are accompanied by abnormal conditions. In addition, fire spells cannot be used, and forest fires are no joke. Tangled with vines. Several thorny vines broke out of the ground and wrapped around the werewolf's left foot. However, the werewolf simply raised his foot, and the vine was torn off, and the thorns on the vine did not even pierce the werewolf's skin. At most, he pulled out a few wolf hairs. Ryan was a little surprised. This werewolf's defense was a bit high. Avada Kedavra. A green light bloomed from Ryan's hand, but the werewolf dodged it easily. Beasts are always alert to danger. The werewolf looked at Ryan, suddenly turned around, jumped twice and got into the woods, disappearing. But Ryan didn't feel happy at all, because his vigilance told him that the werewolf was still watching him nearby. As soon as he reveals a flaw, his body will be torn apart by sharp claws. Magical sense. However, the werewolf would never have imagined that Ryan possessed a spell from another world. Got you. In the magic field of vision, Ryan saw a large group of magic power on his right side huddled behind a stone. Ryan couldn't help but glance over there. And just at this glance, the werewolf instantly changed his position and hid. It was extremely fast, and if it wasn't for Ryan's magical vision, he would not be able to see its movements clearly. And no sound was revealed. Interesting. Ryan felt the werewolf hiding behind a big tree again, and thought with some surprise. Normal werewolves don't have this kind of reason, they just kill and reek crazily. But the one in front of me is different. It can sense Ryan's sight, hide, and know to wait for Ryan to reveal his flaws, and then kill him with one blow. Everything shows that this is no ordinary werewolf. Tree binding strangulation. The branches of the tree where the werewolf was hiding suddenly seemed to come alive, and they wrapped around the werewolf silently and extremely quickly. But the werewolf was very alert and hid again. But this time it seemed to know that Ryan had a way to know where it was hiding, so it did not continue to move. Instead, it stood up openly and looked at Ryan. Roar! A violent voice came from the werewolf's mouth, and a fishy smell filled Ryan's entire nasal cavity. It's so disgusting. Ryan reacted quickly and quickly isolated the breath. Things that don't know whether to live or die, a beast is just a beast after all. Ryan said, looking at the werewolf in front of him. The werewolf noticed the meaning in Ryan's eyes, which was exactly the same as the way others looked at him after they knew he was a werewolf, which greatly irritated the werewolf. We are all the same. The werewolf looked at Ryan and said intermittently, mixed with some beastly roars. Phantom light body. Ryan quickly hid his traces, which was Ryan's usual practice. However, this time Ryan made a mistake. Because of the werewolf's well-developed sense of smell, he easily identified the Ryan in front of him as a fake. By the way, he also found the location of Ryan's real body. Haha, idiot. Ryan looked at the werewolf rushing toward him and smiled disdainfully. The temperature in the air suddenly dropped, and blue threads lit up, forming a huge prison that enveloped the werewolf. After the silk thread wrapped the werewolf, it quickly shrank, and finally tied the werewolf into a rice dumpling. Seeing that the werewolf lost the ability to move, Ryan turned into a cloud of smoke and descended into his true form. The tied werewolf kept struggling, but once he struggled, the blue silk thread on his body lit up once, and then shrank tighter. But even so, it still couldn't break the werewolf's skin. Ryan became more and more curious. The intelligence was beyond the ordinary werewolf, and the defense power was far beyond the ordinary werewolf. All of this represented the extraordinariness of this werewolf. He looked at the werewolf, but found nothing unusual. It seemed to be an ordinary werewolf. The strength of the werewolf's struggle began to weaken, and he finally lay on the ground, motionless. If it weren't for the rise and fall of his chest, Ryan would have thought the werewolf was dead. That's wrong. Ryan murmured. He didn't use any powerful spell, and the thread was just a control spell. There was no reason that a werewolf with such a strong defense could be so weak. Villia. The werewolf looked up at the sky, and a human voice suddenly came out of the wolf's mouth, which was exactly the same as the middle-aged man's voice that Ryan heard at the beginning. Dead. Ryan was a little surprised. I didn't expect that the werewolf was really dead. However, Ryan was cautious and did not take any more actions, but was preparing to put the werewolf's stone head into the space bag. The space bag cannot store living objects, so any items with life characteristics cannot be stored in it. The werewolf's body just disappeared in front of Ryan's eyes. Really dead? But Ryan didn't feel much strange. After all, according to the werewolf's behavior at that time, he came with the intention of killing himself. Ryan looked at the silent forest around him, feeling a little helpless. He just wanted to ask for directions and explore the weirdness of this forest. Now it seems that the source of the strangeness has been found, but who should I ask along the way? And Ryan glanced at his space bag strangely. So far, he already had 2 corpses in his bag. This made him a little afraid to carry the bag. No matter, I hope there is a map in this house. Looking at the crooked house in front of him, Ryan opened the door and walked in. Chapter 107. Ryan pushed open the door that couldn't be called a door, because it didn't look like a door, but more like a few broken boards nailed to a stick. There are very few things inside the house, and it's weirdly shaped. It's more like it was made by a novice who didn't know anything. Ryan guessed that this was the work of the werewolf. Ryan looked through the things on the table and found that they were all handmade bowls and cups. He's just like Robinson Crusoe in the forest, Ryan said without interest. In fact, he didn't expect to find anything valuable. Werewolves in the wizarding world are notoriously poor. Even robbers don't want to meet werewolves. If they don't have 2 coins in their pockets, they will be bitten. Transforming into a werewolf is really a losing business. There is only a sofa, a table, and a stool in this room, and other than that there are wooden walls. It is worth mentioning that the walls of this house are also made of wood. Pushing open the door leading to the room on the left, there is a kitchen inside, which is extremely dirty. Animal offal and fur were scattered everywhere, the countertop was covered with a dark stain, and there were some unknown objects on the walls. The whole room exuded a disgusting smell. Ryan just took a look and closed the door. Even if there were good things in there, he didn't want to look for it. It's so jarring. Ryan opened the door leading to the room on the right, only to find a staircase leading to the 2nd floor. This is not surprising, because from the outside, the house looks like a slender house with at least 3 floors. There are also 2 rooms on the 2nd floor, a study and a bedroom. The books in the study are in excellent condition, and there are notes on each book. It can be seen that the original owner must be a book lover. Moreover, the furniture in the rest of the rooms is all made by myself, but the furniture in the study room is clearly well made and has been used for at least some years. The patina on it looks so round and smooth. Ryan kept all the books in his pocket, but none of the furniture. Hey! When Ryan was collecting the books, he suddenly discovered that there was a dark layer on the desk. Magical sense. Ryan opened the magic vision, but did not find any magic fluctuations on the desk. It seems to be a mechanical mechanism. Ryan breathed a sigh of relief. If it is a magical mechanism, it may take a little effort, but this kind of purely physical mechanism is easy to handle. Magic always has a way to solve these problems. Ryan put his palm against the secret door on the desk, and the magic power slowly poured in through his palm, sensing everything inside the secret door. As time went by, more and more sweat dropped on Ryan's forehead, and finally Ryan removed his palm. What kind of broken mechanism is this? It's so complicated. Aren't you afraid that you won't be able to open it one day? Since literary skills are not enough, then it is natural to have some martial arts skills. Ryan put his palm on it again, first inputting magic power to protect the things inside, and then quickly inputting a large amount of magic power, quickly destroying all the mechanisms. Although this method is fast, it is difficult to be effective if there are violent unlocking protection measures. For example, one violently unlocks the door, and the other uses strong acid to destroy the items in the hidden compartment. That's why Ryan used magic power in advance to protect the things in the dark grid to ensure that it would not be destroyed. However, it turned out that Ryan was overly worried. There was no such thing as strong acid explosives in the secret compartment. Open the door and store this notebook in the secret compartment. May 3, 1931. I met the person I have loved my whole life in a bar. She was so beautiful, her eyes were as bright as the stars in the sky. Ahem. Ryan coughed twice, feeling a little embarrassed. It wasn't the embarrassment caused by peeking at other people's diaries, but the diary written by Mr. Townsend was too sensual and looked like a love letter. Ryan quickly turned to the next page. Fortunately, Mr. Townsend doesn't have a good habit of writing a diary every day, otherwise Ryan's workload will be greatly increased. June 1, 1931. I miss that beautiful girl more and more, but I know that I am just an abandoned son of a family, and there is no way I can be favored by such a beauty. But I decided to give it a try because my good friend Owen thought so too. He told me that if a man doesn't try once, how can he give up easily? June 20, 1931. I thought about it for a long time and finally decided to confess. As Owen said, men cannot give up easily. June 25, 1931. Since I made my decision, I am still a little unsure. But today, I still mustered up the courage to tell her my feelings. What a huge surprise, she actually agreed. Thanks to Merlin for sending her to me. February 18, 1933. We got married and I couldn't believe it. But I'm very confused as to why Vilya chose to settle next to this forest full of wolves. But these are not problems, I am a wizard, and mere wolves cannot threaten me. Seeing this, Ryan shook his head. He finally figured out that Varya was probably a werewolf, and Townsend was infected by Varya. July 5, 1940. It's strange that Vilya didn't agree with us having a baby. She said she was afraid of pregnancy. Well, it doesn't matter if you don't want kids. July 15, 1940. The wolves outside were howling again today, but after hearing it for a long time, I got used to it. February 3, 1941. Varya turned out to be a werewolf. Merlin, I can't believe it. Well, I don't care, as long as she's Vilya. August 6, 1942. Vilya said she couldn't control herself. My Vilya, I don't blame you. August 7, 1942. No, my Vilya, why do you do this? August 8, 1942. I remembered a secret method that my family had experimented with, which might be able to solve my werewolf identity. I have to give it a try and hope it works, which is what Vilya hopes. The diary disappeared at the end, which made Ryan feel strange. There is a gap of 50 years between 1942 and 1992. Is it true that not a word has been written in these 50 years? Ryan didn't believe it, so there must be another notebook somewhere else. And where it might exist. Ryan turned his head toward the bedroom, where the possibilities lay. When he opened the door, a sour smell came straight into Ryan's nose. Damn it, don't you know how to cry in it? How can you live in such a dirty place? Ryan cast a refreshing spell, and the air in the bedroom finally improved and was no longer as smelly as before. There is a bed, a wardrobe, a table, and chairs in the bedroom, but nothing else. Chapter 108. As expected, Ryan found another notebook in the bedroom. Opening the book, it is obvious that the handwriting inside is not as beautiful as the previous one. And this book is obviously not as thick as the previous one. It seems that after becoming a werewolf, Mr. Townsend's personality has also changed slightly, and he no longer loves keeping diaries so much. However, when Ryan carefully looked at the contents of the diary, he realized that it was not that Mr. Townsend didn't like it anymore, but that he didn't have time. After Mr. Townsend became a werewolf, he remembered the experiments his family had done, so he went back to the family to steal some of the experimental data, and then began 30 years of research with the help of his friend Owent. During this period, in order to have enough materials, he even went to the Muggle world under the name of a Death Eater to collect materials to observe what changes would happen in the process of changing from a human to a werewolf. However, none of the Muggles captured survived. Perhaps there was no magic power in the body, or the body was too fragile. In short, after being bitten by Townsend, those ordinary people would quickly go crazy and die. After the autopsy, Townsend discovered that the mutations had actually begun to occur in those people, but for unknown reasons, the mutations stopped. At the same time, Townsend is also using another theoretically feasible secret method to regain his human body. For him, this is the best memorial to Varya, because Varya was thinking about the werewolf until her death. Ways to become human. This theory holds that a wizard turns into a werewolf because the werewolf's teeth bite the wizard and inject a strange factor into the wizard's body. This factor will change the wizard's body and turn the wizard into a werewolf. But it takes a certain amount of time for this factor to take effect. So if this factor is removed during this period, will it not turn into a werewolf? And the founder of this theory also proved that there is indeed a unique factor influencing wizards to transform into werewolves. After Mr. Townsend was bitten by Vilya, he and his friend Owen started this secret method, whole body blood transfusion within 3 days. Yes, the way Townsend wanted to remove the special factors from his body was through blood transfusion. Excrete the blood with high concentration of factors from the body, and then use the magic potion to make your body produce blood quickly to dilute the factors. Townsend believes that when the factor reaches a certain concentration, it will no longer have any effect on his body. Facts have proved that Townsend's approach may have some effect, at least he will not fall into an irrational state after transforming into a werewolf, unless he becomes furious. Townsend quickly became addicted to the powerful power after transforming into a werewolf, and pursued the powerful power even more crazily, and his good friend, Owent, never left his side to help him. Why do I feel like Owent doesn't look like a good person? Ryan touched his chin and thought. It's nice not to wear colored glasses when it comes to your friends who turn into werewolves. But supporting your friends to do those experiments, and even encouraging them a little bit, doesn't look like a normal friend. Ryan thought for a while and turned the diary to the next page. After all, the current information is somewhat insufficient. What if Owen really wants his friend to return to his human body? After Townsend gained great power, it quickly expanded and acted even more unscrupulously. In that era when everyone was afraid of Death Eaters and Voldemort, Townsend wore a black robe and pretended to be a Death Eater in the Muggle world to capture homeless people. It happened to be the Second World War at that time, and 2 more people disappeared every day. No one would notice the 3 of them. But Townsend's behavior was quickly noticed by the Death Eaters, the Muggle government, and the local Ministry of Magic. Because it's really strange. The Death Eaters' activities are all in the country. Although they are also influential abroad, they don't do such wanton activities at all. At this time, Ryan also learned that he was now in a remote forest in Eastern Europe, and Townsend was a native of the country. After the incident was revealed, Townsend began to face siege and interception from all sides. The extra party is the peaceful werewolves. This group of werewolves hopes to coexist peacefully with humans, and will naturally take action against Townsend, who has severely damaged the friendship between the 2 parties. At this point, Townsend began to escape from a foreign land. And every time Townsend was in a life crisis, Owen would always appear on time to save Townsend from fire and water. Why do you think Owen is not a good person? Ryan frowned and said secretly. Being able to be rescued in time once or twice can be said to be a coincidence, but it cannot be said to be a coincidence 4 or 5 times. But at the time, Townsend believed that Owen was his true friend, so he shared his research results with Owen without reservation. After obtaining the research results, Owen took Townsend to the forest and disappeared. As time went by, Townsend began to show various shortcomings. You need to eat a lot, otherwise you will feel restless, which means you will become addicted to meat. Every battle will damage your body, which is what Townsend discovered during his escape. The irritable breath cannot be good. Covering up, this makes hunting difficult, as prey are always alert when Townsend comes within a certain distance. No wonder he died because I didn't use a powerful spell. He must have reached his limit. Regarding Townsend's death, Ryan was only curious, but had absolutely no regrets. The violence and murderous intent in Townsend's eyes at that time made Ryan clearly realize that only one of him and Townsend could survive. Maybe operating is a good choice, but you can't just escape every battle. Ryan closed the diary. He had read it all. The 3rd floor of this house stores Townsend's research records on werewolves over the years. After coming to this forest, in order to prevent himself from doing nothing, he wrote down his previous research results from memory. During this process, Townsend also reflected on his mistakes and expressed regret in his diary. Ryan came to the 3rd floor and opened the dusty door. Inside the door were rolls of parchment, scattered on the ground in a disorderly manner, covered with dust. Ryan levitated the light ball in his hand into the air, and then cast a cryoning spell on the entire room. The dust all over the house disappeared, leaving behind rolls of khaki scrolls. Ryan opened them one by one, browsed the contents at random, and then put them aside. He needed to sort these things out, and he was curious about Townsend's findings. Not to mention anything else, just being able to maintain sanity during the transformation is enough to make all werewolves sought after, even if this method can only be used within a certain period of time after being bitten to be effective. Didn't you see that Mr. Damocles Belby received great praise for his invention of Wolfsbane potion? Chapter 109. It took Ryan half a day to finally sort out the parchments in this room. And Ryan had to admit Townsend's talent, because the parchments in this room not only related to werewolves, but also related to blood inheritance and even blood transplantation. Ryan believed that if such a roomful of parchment was leaked out, it would definitely cause a huge earthquake in the current state magical world. But it's a pity that Ryan will never let these things get out. Putting all the parchment in his bag, Ryan stood up from the ground and moved his body. Hey! I'm so hungry. He didn't feel much when he had something to do before, but now that he was suddenly free, Ryan noticed what was going on in his stomach. However, there was not a single animal in the forest outside. It seems that Townsend was moving in the forest, which caused the animals to think that this was Townsend's territory. As a result, there was no animal here, so hunting was impossible. But Ryan was not worried. He took out the tent given to him by Favo, set it up outside the house, then lifted the curtain at the entrance of the tent and walked in. There was food stored by Ryan in the tent, which was placed by Ryan to prevent him from being unable to eat in a certain place. Although it is indeed convenient to apparate, Ryan will not come and go just for a meal. And if you are caught operating between countries, it is considered illegal immigration. Ryan put some magic power into the flint stone placed on the stove, and a flame came out of the stone. Sure enough, I'm really not used to being without pudding. Ryan said with some interest while sitting at the dining table, eating his own stir-fry. But this is normal. His pudding cooking skills are indeed impressive, and Ryan has not cooked for a whole year since he entered Hogwarts. Goo goo. Pace staggered in from the outside, threw the 2 letters on the dining table angrily, and then stood on the table beside him, ignoring Ryan and just eating his feet alone. Nuts inside the ring. Haha, Pace, thank you for your hard work. I just didn't know that this place is so far away from the country of you. Looking at Pace, who was a little tired, Ryan said sheepishly. At that time, Ryan had actually deliberately controlled the magic power used to apparate, but he didn't expect to come to such a far place. After finishing speaking, Ryan turned his attention to the 2 letters on the table. One was from Hermione, and one was from the 3 brothers. Ryan first opened the letter sent by the 3 brothers, and as he looked at it, a smile appeared on Ryan's face. Today is a really good day. First, he obtained a lot of precious information from Townsend, and then received a letter that the Corey family was collecting corpses. Suddenly, Ryan felt that the food in his mouth tasted better. Goo. Pace glanced at Ryan, who was smiling, and felt even more excited. Owls and people have different joys and sorrows. Pace pecked the nuts scattered on the table harder, and Ryan glanced at Pace unexpectedly. The bloodline of magical creatures is so powerful. It has flown so far and still has the strength to peck nuts so hard. It is worthy of my choice of owl. After Ryan finished eating, he packed up the tent and arrived at the 3 brothers' home. What the letter said was a little unclear, so Ryan decided to ask the 3 brothers. Welcome, Master. Butch saw Ryan appearing outside his yard and ran out in fear. Hey? Where are Richie and Kiki? Ryan was a little confused, knowing that he rarely saw the 3 brothers separated. Master, they are collecting information in Nocturne Alley. Butch hurriedly replied, fearing that Ryan would misunderstand that his 2 brothers were slacking off in their work. Ryan nodded. Although he was not very concerned about intelligence issues now. After all, the information gathered by the small group of Beaver and Kess was enough for Ryan to use, but the work attitude of the 3 brothers was still advisable. Tell me about the Corey family in detail. Ryan walked into the 3 brothers' home and sat down unceremoniously. Master, according to the intelligence we collected in Nocturne Alley, the number of death row prisoners the Corey family has demanded from the Muggle world has increased significantly in recent times. The Muggle government actually doesn't have that many prisoners at the moment. So the Corey family took the idea to those poor wizards. A living Muggle can be exchanged for 1 galung. This is the price offered by the Corey family. Butch wiped the sweat from his forehead. Isn't there any movement from the Ministry of Magic for such a big matter? Ryan asked. This matter is no longer a small matter. The Corey family has seriously violated the International Statute of Wizarding Secrecy. Not yet. We will notify you as soon as the Corey family announces the news. Butch was a little lucky that he reported it to Ryan in time. Well done, this is your reward. Remember to let me know if the Ministry of Magic takes any action. Ryan said as he placed 2 potions on the table. This was Snape's special potion that was collected from the pockets of high-level wizards last time. The taste was so unpalatable that it was outrageous. In comparison, the potion Snape gave to Ryan last time could be regarded as a delicacy on Earth. Ryan seriously doubted whether the old bat had a desire to retaliate against society. But fortunately, he has these subordinates to share the burden for him. Butch raised his head slightly and saw the 2 bottles of potions with Snape's exclusive mark on the table, and he suddenly felt very happy. Sure enough, it's better to Ryan against a big tree to enjoy the shade. Butch thought to himself. If these 2 potions had been put away before, they would have been unthinkable, but now they were easily rewarded to him by Ryan. Butch suddenly felt a little emotional. How has your strength improved recently? This is the issue that Ryan is most concerned about. After all, it involves Ryan's shocking plan. Butch paused. He didn't expect that Ryan would ask such a question. However, his life and death were in Ryan's hands, so Butch didn't hide much. We have also spent a lot of time practicing spells recently, but... Butch hesitated for a moment, but continued. Ryan also understood what Butch meant and couldn't help but frown. He was a little dissatisfied with the progress of the 3 brothers. After all, who doesn't want to have powerful subordinates? Butch watched Ryan frown, and couldn't help but feel something in his heart. Forget it. Remember, strong strength is the basis for survival. This sentence was not only said to the three brothers, but also Ryan said to himself. Okay, please continue to pay attention to this matter and notify me immediately if there is any news. Wish you all a happy children's tribulation. Chapter 110. After Ryan finished speaking, he left the three brothers' home and came to his cabin in the forest. Master, welcome back. As soon as Ryan arrived at the door of his house, his door was opened by Pudding. The little guy stood at the door, wearing a vest made of rags, revealing his thin body. Master, the food has been cooked and placed on the dining table. Pudding followed Ryan into the house and followed Ryan on his short legs. How's the plantation going lately? Ryan asked with concern, sitting at the dining table. When Pudding heard these words, he inadvertently paused in his chest. The plantation is what Pudding is most proud of in his life. Not only has the owner entrusted him with this important task, but also the plantation is in his hands, and the profits are much higher than before. Master, the plantation earned a total of 1,252 galleons in the first half of this year. This is the net profit. Pudding rubbed his hands and said with a smile on his face. How is the growth of the potion? Ryan asked without raising his head. Pudding was stunned for a moment. He didn't expect that Ryan would care about this. At Malfoy Manor, no one ever cared about this issue. However, Pudding quickly answered, the plantation harvested a total of 7,352 herbs, which is more than 1,000 more than before, and the quality is much better than before. This year's herbal purchase the price is 2 cats higher than last year. This achievement is enough for it to be proud of. But it can also be seen how much Pudding cares about this plantation. Ryan nodded, and he also knew that Pudding was interested. He glanced at Pudding and wanted to praise it, but saw Pudding frozen in place with a hesitant look on his face. What? Is there anything else going on at the plantation? Ryan asked. Pudding hesitated, standing there and looking around. Say, this is an order. Ryan's tone was a little stern, and he used commanding words. He knew that it was impossible for a house elf to refuse his master's order. Sure enough, although Pudding was still very confused, he still spoke. Master, actually, the profit can actually be a little more, but... Pudding didn't say everything, but Ryan also understood the meaning of Pudding's words. As early as the Christmas holiday, he had ordered Pudding to give a certain discount to Beaver and Kess when they came to buy potions. Or simply sell it at cost price. I sold those parts at cost price without any price increase. The owner can rest assured. Pudding was a little flustered. It didn't want Ryan to think that it didn't follow orders, because no owner would like a house elf that didn't follow orders. Don't worry about that. I don't lack galleons. What I need now is a plantation that can grow high-quality potions. Don't be afraid of spending money. All I don't lack is money. Ryan said, throwing a fruit core into the trash can, then entering the transformation circle and turning it into gold. Sure enough, it was really satisfying to say this sentence. Pudding stood there and waited for a while, then helped Ryan remove the plates from the dining table. Goo goo. Pace flew in and dropped a letter. Ah, the textbook catalog for the second semester. Ryan opened the letter and felt a headache looking at the series of Gilderoy Lockhart on the catalog. Ryan has also read through his books this year. He has a lot of professional knowledge, and the plot is full of ups and downs and fascinating. It can be said that it can be enjoyed by both refined and popular people. But again, he is an idiot. Ryan looked at the letter in his hand, and his thoughts began to drift into the distance. The second grade can be said to be the beginning of the dangers of Hogwarts. The first grade is just a battle of wits and courage between Harry and the remnant soul of the Dark Lord. By the second grade, there are real casualties of ordinary little wizards. That's not right, why should I follow the plot? Ryan patted his head and found that he had fallen into a misunderstanding. Isn't it just a diary? I can definitely snatch it from Lucius, but he can't beat me anyway. No matter how powerful you are, it is useless. For the crime of harboring Voldemort's Horcrux, if he was not sentenced to a kiss from the Soul Eater on the spot, Ryan felt that Fudge would have to step down the next day. And this matter is very profitable. Ryan thought of several other plantations owned by the Malfoy family. Lucius was totally displeased with both sides in this matter. Voldemort, you actually want to give away the Dark Lord's Horcrux? What do you mean? If a die-hard Death Eater doesn't give you a happy spell for Lao Fu, it would be a shame for Lao Fu's cultivation. As for the Ministry of Magic, they wanted to destroy the peaceful scene maintained by Fudge. Ryan believed that Fudge would never spare Lucius. But the most likely possibility is that Fudge will pretend to be dead, but at least Lucius will no longer have his official position. As for Dumbledore, it goes without saying. Don't you see that the Order of the Phoenix formed by Dumbledore was the one who fought the most fiercely with the Death Eaters at that time? As for the remaining pure-blood families, they are eager for the Malfoy family to go wrong so that they can take over the Malfoy family's wealth. Among these families, the small and medium-sized families are the most important. Anything exposed by the Malfoy family is enough to make their mouths water. Pudding! Ryan shouted into the air. Wearing rubber gloves and a small apron, Pudding immediately appeared in front of Corian. Which of the Malfoy plantations are good? This time, he would not let Lucius give him the worst plantation. Master, there are 3 of them, namely the Ginkgo plantation, the snake grass plantation and the ironwood plantation. Each plantation grows plants with the same name as theirs. Pudding said with some embarrassment. Although this was the master's order, it still felt a little uneasy to reveal the secret of the previous master. But when it thought about Bibi and how Ryan had treated itself over the past year, its heart instantly hardened. Master, do you want to ask the Malfoy family for any valuable items? It doesn't have to be valuable, the most important thing is that it has to be precious and useful. Reen glanced at the pudding in surprise. Sure enough, it is not without benefit to be kind to the house elves. They are intelligent and can judge who is good and who is bad. Then, Pudding once heard from other elves that there are several alchemy works of ancient wizards in the Malfoy family's collection room, which even Master Malfoy cannot see if he wants to. Ryan listened and nodded secretly. But he felt that the possibility of getting these treasures was not very high, but this was not a problem. Who doesn't know how to open a lion's mouth? Businesses are all negotiated. Chapter 111. Since Ryan returned to his cabin in the forest, he has not gone out again. On the one hand, it is necessary to study several ancient magic scrolls brought out from the Lost Stone Forest, and Townsend's research on bloodline also needs to be understood by Ryan. Secondly, Ryan felt that his luck was a bit unlucky, and he was like a primary school student of death, so nothing good would happen if he went out. It's early August, the time that all little wizards are most looking forward to. The new students can finally go to the world they long for, and the old students can also take this time to make an appointment with their friends to go shopping in the largest wizarding shopping street in the UK. Hermione had also made an agreement with Ryan to go to Diagon Alley in 3 days. At this time, Ryan was standing at the junction of Diagon Alley and Nocturne Alley. Behind him is the laughter of Diagon Alley, and in front of him is the dark and dense Nocturne Alley. Ha ha ha, the young man can tell by looking at it that this is his first time coming to Nocturne Alley. How about it, do you want me to introduce it to you? An old woman with a wrinkled face and only one eye said with a smile when she saw Ryan coming to Nocturne Alley alone. As he spoke, his hand pulled on Ryan's arm, as if Ryan would force him if he didn't agree. Ryan glanced at the black hand on his arm and said with a smile on his face, I originally thought that the older people get, the smarter they become, but I didn't expect that the majority of people in this world are stupid people. As he said this, Ryan glanced at the many malicious eyes in Nocturne Alley. A blue flame suddenly ignited from Ryan's palm, and then swam up Ryan's arm as if it were alive. Seeing that something was wrong, the old wizard hurriedly tried to take out his hand, but unexpectedly his hand was firmly attached to Ryan's arm by a huge force. The blue flame finally reached the old wizard's palm, and at this moment, the old wizard was surprised to find that his hand could twitch. Just when the old wizard took away his palm and had no time to be happy, the blue flame suddenly enveloped the entire old wizard. Ah! A blood-curdling scream suddenly sounded, attracting the attention of many wizards in Diagon Alley and Nocturne Alley. Fortunately, Ryan came here in disguise today, otherwise Ryan's beautiful photo would have appeared in the Daily Prophet tomorrow. When the wizards in Diagon Alley saw that this happened outside the dividing line, they immediately became excited. After all, this is what happened in Nocturne Alley, and it didn't happen in Diagon Alley, so it couldn't hinder him. It is human nature to watch the excitement. The wizard of Nocturne Alley was carefully studying Ryan's face to avoid bumping into Ryan later. Maybe the wizards in Diagon Alley don't know what this blue flame is, but the old fritters in Nocturne Alley can tell it at a glance, calendar fire. This is extremely advanced and extremely dangerous black magic, and there are only 2 types of people who can use it. One type is a person with high magical power, who has the ability to control the calendar fire and prevent it from getting out of control. The other type is a person with brain problems, who cannot control it at all, and comes with the idea of dying together with the enemy. But no matter what kind of person they are not the ones these old fritters are willing to mess with. And judging from the current situation, Ryan is undoubtedly the first. The old wizard's screams quickly subsided, and Ryan opened his hand, and the blue flame fell into Ryan's hand obediently. Ryan looked around, and there was no longer the greedy look in his eyes. He nodded with satisfaction, then made a fist and extinguished the blue flame. Gently stepping over the black thing on the ground, Ryan walked forward along the central main road of Nocturne Alley. He had already found out clearly that today was the day Lucius and Draco came to Diagon Alley, and it was also the day the Savior entered Nocturne Alley by mistake. "Sorry, Lucius, we are a regular store here and we don't accept these things." As soon as Ryan walked to the door of Bogenbach's store, he heard a very greasy voice. "It's better to come early than to come by chance." Ryan said silently, opened the door and walked in. The ding-bell doorbell made a clear sound due to the movement of the door, reminding the owner that a guest was coming. "Ah, Lucius, I have guests here. I'm very sorry, I don't accept these things here, so your trip was in vain." "Okay, put these things away quickly." Mr. Borkin smiled at Ryan laugh. Nowadays, the Ministry of Magic is stricter about dark magic items. For safety reasons, he has completely suspended the acquisition of dark magic items, and even these items placed outside have been screened. But Lucius has been pestering him relentlessly today, with the intention of not leaving until Bojan takes him. So Mr. Borjan gave what he thought was a warm smile to the wizard who broke the deadlock. "Ah, this novice's aura, for the sake of you asking Lucius for me, today Mr. Borjan is here to teach you a truth, there are no wizards in Nocturne Alley who are not deceitful." Mr. Borkin thought so. Lucius also quickly put away the items originally placed on the counter. He didn't want outsiders to see that he had these things. He turned to look at Ryan and snorted coldly. However, no one left. It seemed that he was waiting for Ryan to leave and continue to sharpen Borjan. Mr. Borkin glanced at Lucius, feeling a little helpless. Now this dark magic item is a hot potato, everyone avoids it like a tiger or a scorpion. "Sir, take a look, what do you need? The things I have here are all of the best quality. You can go out and ask around. Who doesn't say that my things are good?" Bojan ignored Lucius and turned to and introduced various things to Ryan very enthusiastically. Ryan also followed Mr. Borjan for a walk, which really opened his eyes. He didn't know until today that alchemy items can be made into so many shapes. His thinking has always been limited to clothes and jewelry. "How about it? Is my stuff good? What do you like? Since you are a new customer, I can give you a 15% discount. Don't look at me like that. This is already very low. Discount? Do you know how high the cost of these things is?" Mr. Bojan continued to promote his products. Lucius looked at Bojan with disdain. He had already seen that Bojan first offered a very high price and then discounted it. This also deceives new customers, and those with a little experience cannot be deceived at all. "I didn't see anything suitable, but I think this gentleman should have a lot of things, why not take them out and take a look?" Ryan said with a smile. Lucius was a little surprised, but he was careful not to take out the things. Chapter 112. "Sir, I don't have anything you like. And this is Mr. Bojan's shop. Is it inappropriate for you to ask me directly?" Lucius hesitated and said with a smile. Zhong Huan still pulled Bojan in. Borjan didn't feel much at this time. Instead, he hoped that Ryan could buy the things from Lucius's hands so that Lucius wouldn't bother him anymore. "Sir, what are you worried about? The Ministry of Magic. There is no need to do so. The Ministry of Magic is currently inspecting dark magic items. This is something everyone knows. But think about it, we have a deal, maybe it will be revealed. If it is revealed, wouldn't it just prove that I have dark magic items? I think it is impossible for a normal person to do this kind of thing. What do you think, sir?" Ryan saw Lucius's hesitation and continued. Lucius, who was still hesitant at first, thought about it carefully and it seemed to be true. After all, a slap can't make a difference. "Since you said Lucius sold dark magic items, who took them? It's not like you collected it, right? Is it really you who collected it? Well, you've violated the ban too, so come with us." "Okay, but I need your guarantee that if you want to buy something, you need to buy all my things. Lucius was still a little worried, so he made such an excessive request. Little did he know that this request was exactly what Ryan wanted, and he was still thinking about how to make Lucius not doubt his motives. Okay, let's take the things out and take a look first. Let me explain in advance, if there is nothing I like, don't expect me to buy it. Ryan acted like a novice who really wanted to buy something. Lucius nodded and placed the items on the counter one by one. Bojin had no intention of stopping it, but instead watched all this with interest. After a while, the table was filled with all kinds of strange things. Various weird-shaped bones, some dark metal pieces, and other random things. Ryan glanced at Lucius in surprise. If it weren't for the magic fluctuations on these items, he would have thought that Lucius regarded Bojin box store as a garbage dump. Ryan picked it up and looked at it, then touched it. Borkin and Lucius were frightened, fearing that Ryan's hand would tremble and trigger the black magic item in his hand. The two of them breathed a sigh of relief when they saw Ryan put down the last magic item with satisfaction. Borkin even regretted it at this time. The reason why he didn't accept Lucius's things before was because he wanted to use the Ministry of Magic's recent ban to lower the price. Unexpectedly, this idea made him worried and scared for a long time. Your goods are good. I can buy them all. Please tell me the price. Ryan said very proudly. Lucius's eyes lit up. In fact, it was not impossible to deal with these items at a loss. He had also seen Bojin's thoughts before. The reason why I continued to argue with Bojin was just to prevent myself from agreeing too happily and causing Bojin to be confused. After all, this is what I have always done. But then again, who wants to sell it at a loss when it can be sold at the original price? 300 galleons. Lucius reported the number. Ryan thought for a while, then pretended to be in pain and said, 280 galleons, I want all of these. I only have so much money, so I won't sell it. Deal. Lucius smiled like a flower. When Bojin heard this, his eyes almost popped out of his head. When he sold it to him before, the price was only 240 galleons. Damn it, if I had known that this boy was so interested in Lucius's goods, I shouldn't have made such a fuss. Buying and selling, you can earn 40 galleons in just 10 minutes. This kind of good thing can't be found even with a lantern. Happy transaction, Lord Malfoy. Ryan counted out 280 galleons, put them in the bag, and handed them to Lucius. Lucius took the money bag, and after looking up and down, he knew that the amount in the bag was good. These things are yours. Lucius waved his hand happily and said. Ryan put everything on the counter into his own space bag, except for the notebook, which Ryan put into his own seamless stretch bag. Because Ryan wasn't sure whether the soul fragments were considered living things, to be on the safe side, he'd better put them in a traceless stretch bag. As for other things, a space bag that does not have a time flow rate is the best choice. Mr. Malfoy, thank you for your generosity. Ryan said this sincerely. He was looking forward to Lucius's face when he came to him with his diary. No, this is just a deal. You have a good sense, and these things are of the best quality. Although Lucius looked like you had taken advantage of him, in his heart he was cursing the kid in front of him for being a fool. Greenhead. Both parties were satisfied with the deal. Lucius thought he had made a profit, while Ryan knew that he was the one who made the most profit. The two foxes, one big and one small, looked at each other and smiled, then turned around and left the Bojin box store one after the other. It was just painful for Mr. Borgin to watch 40 galleons slip away before his eyes. After leaving Bojin box store, Ryan was in no hurry to go back. He wanted to wait, maybe there would be another fun to watch later, but he just didn't know if the fun would happen after he rewrote the script. Harry hid in a cabinet nearby and witnessed the transaction between Lucius and Ryan, which made him more convinced that the Malfoys were not good people. After Malfoy and Ryan left, he also took the opportunity to sneak out of Borgin's box store. Is this Nocturne Alley? It doesn't feel like a good place. Let's leave quickly. Harry looked at this legendary place and thought to himself. Perhaps it was due to Ryan's intimidation today that Harry walked from Nocturne Alley to Diagon Alley without encountering any obstacles. Ryan was not idle during this time, but went to the Ela Owl store to buy some owl nuts. Although Pace's appetite is not large, he has consumed a large amount of food this year. In addition, Ryan has a space bag, a powerful tool for preserving food, so there is no problem no matter how much he purchases at one time. Total is. There's a fight, there's a fight. Before the cashier finished speaking, he heard a wizard shouting outside. "Hurry up, it's 3 galleons in total." The cashier kept looking at the crowd running outside while urging Ryan to pay the bill quickly. "Here." Ryan counted 3 gold galleons and handed them to the cashier. Unexpectedly, he didn't even look at it, just threw it away in the drawer, and then ignored Ryan and ran out in a daze. Chapter 113. The wizards in Diagon Alley really ate 2 big melons today. First, a powerful wizard came to Nocturne Alley, and when he entered Nocturne Alley, he killed a dark wizard with thunder. The second melon is even more delicious than the first melon. It is Lucius Malfoy, the patriarch of the Malfoy family, one of the 28 holy tribes, and Weiss, who is also one of the 28 tribes. Arthur Weasley, the patriarch of the Lee family, conducted a duel in Muggle style in public. Ryan stood not far away, watching Lucius and Arthur having a men's contest. The wizards in Diagon Alley looked at the 2 patriarchs wrestling with each other and couldn't help but feel a little happy. Usually they don't have the opportunity to see the ugliness of these big shots, and they can only see it now. "That's enough, what are you doing?" A loud voice sounded in the ears of all wizards, which attracted everyone's attention. The wizards raised their heads and saw a giant more than 3 meters tall, and they immediately started talking. Hagrid frowned and ignored these comments. He has been surrounded by these discussions since he was a child, but now he doesn't think it matters anymore. He stepped forward and separated the 2 people who were struggling together. "Hey, Weasley, put away your daughter's books." Lucius put all the second-hand books in Arthur's arms and mocked him. After saying that, Lucius took his son Draco Malfoy and left here. When Arthur heard this, he immediately wanted to rush forward and fight with Lucius. "Okay, Arthur, don't argue with Malfoy. It's not like you don't know who their family is." Hagrid easily grabbed Arthur, who was about to step forward, and spoke. Arthur nodded. He had no good impression of the Malfoy family at all. In his opinion, the reason Lucius was able to escape the Ministry of Magic's trial was entirely because of benefits. This is simply a violation of magical law. Harry stood behind Hagrid and with Ron. "Ron, look." Harry noticed Ryan. "What?" Ron looked at his father, not paying attention to Harry's words. "The wizard in black robe is the one on the left side of the purple robe." Harry was afraid of being discovered by Ryan, so he didn't point out Ryan and could only describe it in words. Ron quickly spotted Ryan because the black robe next to the purple robe was so easy to find. "What happened to the black-robed wizard?" Ron asked curiously. He looked carefully from top to bottom several times and found nothing strange. Too many people in the wizarding world wear black robes. "I saw him buying a lot of dark magic items from Malfoy's father in Nocturne Alley." Harry looked around and said close to Ron's ear. "What?" Ron's scream startled everyone. "What's the matter, Ron?" Mrs. Weasley asked doubtfully. "It's nothing, Mom." Ron was a little embarrassed. It was the first time that he was stared at by so many strange wizards. "It's nothing really," he added. Mrs. Weasley didn't ask any questions when she saw this. Now she was only concerned about Mr. Weasley's injury. When the onlookers saw Chief Malfoy leaving, they all knew that the excitement was over, so they dispersed. This made Mr. Weasley relieved. It was true that he hated the Malfoy family, but this did not mean that he was willing to let the Weasley family become a laughingstock in the wizarding world. Ryan also left with the crowd. After watching the excitement, it was naturally time to go home. After operating back to his home, Ryan sat in a chair and looked at the diary on the table. Looking back now, Ryan wonders whether Lucius agreed a little too quickly? And if the diary was really sold to him, then why would Lucius go to trouble Mr. Weasley again? Could it be fake? Ryan was startled by his own thoughts. If it's fake, that's a big loss. Ryan picked up his quill and opened the diary. "Hello." Ryan wrote in his diary. There was no response from the notebook, just like an ordinary diary. Ryan was a little disappointed. He didn't expect that he didn't seem to have changed the plot in the end. "Hello." Just when Ryan was about to close the notebook, a line of words suddenly appeared under Ryan's handwriting on the notebook. At this time, the remnant soul of Voldemort in the notebook was also very strange. "I thought it was a silly guy, but I didn't expect this guy to see that the diary was conscious at a glance. But maybe it was a blind cat that encountered a dead mouse." Tom comforted himself. Originally he was thinking about how to deal with it, but when he saw Ryan trying to close the diary, he had no time to think too much. When Ryan saw Voldemort's reply, he immediately beamed with joy, knowing that his little treasury was about to be opened again. Bang! Ryan quickly closed the notebook, put it into a magic seal box, and thoughtfully applied a few sealing spells. The remnant spirit of Voldemort in the diary didn't even understand what he had done wrong until he was locked in the box. 3 days later, it was the day that Ryan and Hermione had agreed to go to Diagon Alley. "It's such a pity, we should have come earlier," Hermione said, standing next to Ryan. "Lockhart held a book signing at Flourish and Blott's bookstore 3 days ago, and I missed it. And Patriarch Malfoy and Way Patriarch Sly actually got into a fight in front of Flourish and Blott's bookstore that day." "Wait, how did you know?" Ryan was a little surprised. How could this happen so quickly? Even Hermione, who had been staying in the Muggle world during the summer vacation, knew about it. Hermione looked helpless and took out a roll of newspapers from her pocket and handed it to Ryan. "Don't you even read newspapers? Wizard Daily? What kind of newspaper is this?" Ryan had never heard of this newspaper. "This is the third best-selling newspaper in the UK, and it reported this matter. And when I came in from the Leaky Cauldron just now, I heard many wizards still talking about this matter," Hermione said with a smile. Every time she discovers something that Ryan doesn't know but she knows, it makes the little girl happy for a long time. "Okay," Ryan said helplessly. "The most important thing is that the Wizarding Daily also included a dynamic picture of Patriarch Weasley riding on Patriarch Malfoy and punching Patriarch Malfoy. As long as you look over, Mr. Arthur will punch Mr. Lucius beneath him. Mr. Malfoy will probably be furious to death. It is better to discuss the matter of the diary in 2 days. If Mr. Malfoy dies in a fit of anger, there will be no chance of opening the small vault in the future." Ryan thought so. Chapter 114. After thinking about it for a while, Ryan stopped thinking about it. "Let's go, we need to buy a lot of things today," Ryan said to Hermione. There are indeed a lot of things to buy today. Lockhart's books account for half of them, and second-grade students can already bring brooms to school. The owner of Flourish and Blott's bookstore has been extremely happy these 2 days. After all, every little wizard stepping into the door of Flourish and Blott's bookstore means that he will leave here with a lot of Lockhart's books. Every time a book is sold, he makes a profit. Professor Lockhart is not only handsome and powerful, he is also beautiful in what he does, and he is especially considerate of the little wizards. The owner of Flourish and Blott's bookstore wished all the professors could learn from Lockhart. "Welcome." The owner of Flourishes and Blott's bookstore, who was wandering far away, saw the 2 little wizards coming in and said mechanically. At the same time, he was mentally calculating how much money would be added to his account. "Ah, it's Mr. Zell, and Miss Granger, welcome, welcome." The store manager's face almost turned into a flower with a smile. This is a big customer. Not to mention that Ryan has signed a long-term book purchase plan. Hermione alone will take away 1 or 2 extracurricular books in addition to the textbooks every time she comes. "A few books just arrived today. I was thinking of mailing them to Mr. Zell, but I didn't expect you to come today," the store manager said, taking out a small package from under the counter to prove himself what is said is true. "Excuse me for bothering you. There's no need to mail it. I'll just pick it up myself later." Ryan smiled and nodded. Flourish and Blott's bookstore was very timely every time it mailed books. "Haha, don't bother. I wish I had to worry a little more." The store manager was also very happy, at least he saved the cost of an owl errand. Ryan was talking to the store manager here. He didn't need to buy any books because he had one for all the books. Hermione was selecting the extracurricular books she wanted to read in the bookstore. As for the textbooks, Flourish and Blott's bookstore would thoughtfully pack them for every little wizard. All you had to do was tell the waiter your age. Hermione didn't pick out books very quickly, because she needed to buy a whole set of Lockhart books this year, and the money she could use to buy extracurricular books became in jeopardy. If it weren't for crucibles, telescopes, etc. that didn't need to be purchased repeatedly, maybe the money exchanged at Gringotts this year wouldn't be enough. It can also be seen from here that this year's freshmen will most likely not have an easy time. In the end, Hermione gritted her teeth and bought the 2 books she had always wanted. "I remember I gave you the key," Ryan said, looking at Hermione who looked distressed. Hermione rolled her eyes at Ryan. "It's not hers after all. Haven't you ever thought about earning some galleons? Refining potions, making some alchemy items, etc. "Of course I've thought about it, but to be honest, I'm not that proficient in potion skills. I'll lose money if I make it rashly." Hogwarts doesn't teach alchemy, so if I suddenly start it, wouldn't it be a waste of materials? Hermione was a little troubled. In fact, she had thought about these methods, but in the end she gave up because she didn't have any galleons in her pocket. As for borrowing money from Ryan, Hermione didn't even think about it at all. She didn't want their relationship to deteriorate because of money. In fact, Hermione was a little too worried. Hermione, do you want to come work for me? Ryan suggested. Hey! Hermione was a little confused. That's right, I need an assistant to help me organize the potions. You know, I have a plantation in my name, so I still have plenty of potions. Although Ryan wanted to help Hermione, he also knew that giving Hermione money rashly would definitely not work. This little girl looks soft and weak, but she is actually stronger than anyone else. Hermione also understood Ryan's intention at this time. To be honest, she was quite touched at the moment. At least Ryan could take care of her little self-esteem. Okay, but let me tell you in advance that I don't want your herbal medicine. Hermione still got vaccinated in advance to prevent Ryan from using the herbal medicine to practice her skills in the name of her assistant. Of course, Ryan would not give Hermione herbs directly. That was no different from giving money directly, so why would he make this excuse? After the two of them finished their discussion, Ryan suggested trying some ice cream. Due to professional reasons, Mr. Granger has always required their family to pay attention to their diet. It is impossible to have something like ice cream. After getting the ice cream, the two found a double seat in the store and sat down. The store manager thoughtfully set up several seats of different sizes, including single seats near the bar and double seats. There are also booths at the far end that can seat up to 6 people. No matter how many people come, they can always find a location that meets their needs. Hermione ate in small bites, feeling extremely satisfied with every bite. In the past month, the little girl has never had the opportunity to enjoy a bite of sweets as comfortably as she did today at home. Although Hermione ate in small bites, she did so at a slow pace, and the cup of ice cream quickly reached the bottom. Seeing this, Ryan pushed his untouched cup of ice cream over. Perhaps it was magic on the cup, but the ice cream still showed no sign of melting. Hey! Aren't you going to eat it? Hermione wiped the remaining ice cream around her lips with a tissue and said with some unfinished meaning. You go ahead and eat it. Ryan said with a smile. In the past few days at home, pudding has been cooked in different ways every day, and he does not care about these things anymore. Okay. Hermione nodded, put her spoon into Ryan's cup of ice cream and scooped it up. What else should we buy after eating? Ryan asked. He only read the series of Gilderoy Lockhart in the catalogue attached to the letter sent by Hogwarts, and didn't read the rest at all. Of course, he still kept the ticket that came with the letter. Herbs used in potions class, various transfiguration materials used in transfiguration class, flower pots and various seeds used in herb class, etc. Hermione said a lot while eating ice cream, as if she was reciting. It seems we are quite busy today. The little girl who was eating ice cream sighed and nodded with a painful look on her face. In fact, there were quite a few little wizards with the same sad faces in the ice cream shop, some because of Lockhart's books, and some because it was troublesome to move so many things. Not every little wizard has a seamless stretch bag like Ryan. After Hermione finished eating, the two of them ran around Diagon Alley together. I don't know if it's for the purpose of exercising the little wizard's physical fitness, but these shops are quite far apart. In addition, Ryan and Hermione were playing and walking at the same time, so it took until the sun went down to buy everything they needed. Chapter 115. During the holidays, Hermione would always change a book from Ryan every 2 or 3 days and take it home to read, and she would have a meal here every time she came over. After Ryan's mouth was teased by pudding, Hermione also had a tendency to be teased. Time passed quickly, and September 1st arrived amid the expectations and rejections of countless little wizards. Damn it, why did it come to the beginning of school when I just lay down? Merlin's beard, who of you has done your summer homework? Hurry up and save me, otherwise I will be shot to pieces by several professors, and then take one piece by one. I'm going back to make up my homework. As soon as Ryan passed the wall detection and reached platform 9 3/4, he heard a little wizard wailing at his friends. Ryan, what are you looking at? Hermione said goodbye to her parents and walked over from the wall. Seeing Ryan standing there, she asked curiously. Have you done your summer homework? Ryan asked Hermione. Hermione looked incredulous and said in surprise, I did it, you didn't do it, right? Of course not, I did it, but someone else didn't. As he said this, Ryan pursed his lips towards the boy who just spoke. Hermione followed Ryan's guidance and looked over, and saw several boys gathered around to express their grievances. They seemed to be suggesting that the principal extend the summer vacation when they returned to school. Well, they're all bad boys, Hermione joked, shrugging. Okay, let's get on the train quickly, it's about to leave. Today, because Mr. Granger had a patient, the time was temporarily extended, which resulted in them being a little short of time. Originally, Ryan planned to apparate over directly with Hermione, but Mr. Granger said nothing. Hermione is my daughter. No matter what, I need to at least send her to school. Mr. Granger said. When Ryan and Hermione arrived on the train, all the little wizards had already sat down, and there was only one empty compartment in the last carriage. Ha, I remember the Savior was sitting in this cubicle last year. This is really strange. Ryan moved around, touched around, and said. Okay, sit down quickly. After a while, Beaver and Kess arrived, followed by Wanna. Ryan changed seats so that 3 boys sat in one row and 2 girls sat opposite. Kess looked at the 2 groups of lovers beside him and instantly wanted to slap him on the ears a few times, insisting on punishing them. How was your summer vacation? Ryan asked. It's not bad. The family seems to be interested in cultivating me to be the leader of the party, haha. Beaver finally laughed sarcastically. If he just wants to be the person in charge of family affairs, then there is no need for him to form his own team. Moreover, being the person in charge of family affairs, and one of them at that, cannot impress the Forley patriarch to marry his most beloved granddaughter. My family is increasingly ostracizing me, and my 3 brothers seem to be unwilling to accept it. Kess shook his head, seeming to be sighing. Ryan heard the bloody storm from Kess's words. His brother was unwilling to give in. Could it be that Kess was willing to give in? Okay, let's talk about something fun. Wanna saw that the atmosphere in the cubicle was starting to get a little tense and said, I brought some pastries made by house elves from home, let's try them. With that said, Wanna took out 2 wooden boxes from the suitcase. The wooden boxes engraved with patterns, and the edges and corners are covered with gold foil to prevent injuries from knocking your hands on it. Opening the box, there were square pieces of pastry inside, all crystal clear and dotted with flowers. Moreover, magic was cast on the wooden box so that it is still hot. Why don't we just come for lunch? Hermione suggested. Everyone thought it was time to have lunch, so they didn't refuse. Hey, Ryan, your lunch looks pretty good too. Beaver said with some surprise when he saw Ryan's lunch. Today, Pudding made fried meatballs and fried dumplings for Ryan. This was Ryan's request. He wanted to share the food from his hometown with his friends. Hermione also took out her own lunch. Perhaps because she knew she would be sitting with Ryan, Mrs. Granger specially made Ryan's portion. As for Chris and Beaver, it was very miserable. What they had was just an ordinary lunch, not so many fancy things at all. Everyone was eating and talking, and it took them 2 full hours to finish their lunch. After eating, Wanna took out the teapot and teacups from her box and made tea for everyone. It can be seen from Wanna's familiar movements that Wanna must have been learning for many years. Hermione watched Wanna's movements with envy in her eyes. After Wanna saw the envy in Hermione's eyes, she felt slightly relieved. She deliberately showed her hand in front of Hermione in order to interest Hermione. Then all she had to do was offer to teach Hermione how to make tea, and then they could talk and become friends. Wanna did so much just to help Beaver win over Ryan better. She had already learned from Beaver that Ryan was a very powerful wizard. In addition, Ryan was actually able to get something out of the Malfoy family. Wanna couldn't help but think of Lucius's appearance. Anyone who could take something out of Lucius's hand was not a simple person. Want to learn tea art? Wanna's voice rang in Hermione's ears. Hermione was a little surprised. She didn't expect that Wanna, a Slytherin, would talk to her. She found out that Miss Foley was the favorite granddaughter of Patriarch Foley. But Hermione still nodded. Making good tea can gain a lot of respect in the social circle. With a common topic, they can naturally start a conversation, so the 2 girls began to whisper. During this period, Ryan just glanced at it and paid no more attention to it. He couldn't guess what Wanna was thinking, but he was very happy that Hermione could make friends. Several people were chatting happily. It wasn't until the announcement rang that they realized they had arrived at the station. First years come here. Hagrid stood at the top of the station, holding a lantern in his hand and shouted. Harry, Harry? Harry, are you here? Hagrid found that he didn't seem to see Harry. Okay, are all the new students here? Although Hagrid was worried about Harry, he did not forget his own job. The freshmen looked at the giant in front of them and did not dare to be too presumptuous. They gathered together like quails one by one. Chapter 116. Ryan sat in the carriage pulled by the Thestral, with Hermione beside him, Juana over there, and then Beaver. Poor X was sent to sit with the others. The carriage pulled by the Yeti was unusually stable, and Ryan didn't feel a single sway while sitting in the carriage. The rapidly retreating scenery on both sides also shows that while the car is stable, it is also very fast. About 10 minutes later, everyone arrived at the gate of Hogwarts. Professor McGonagall stood in front of the gate and looked at the young wizards with a smile. Welcome back, everyone. Come in quickly and take your seats. The sorting ceremony will begin soon. After saying that, Professor McGonagall left. She still needed to go to the principal's office on the 8th floor to get the dirty, torn and annoying hat. Ha, another year, McGonagall, and you are one step closer to retirement. The sorting hat would say this to Professor McGonagall every year. The restaurant was still dressed the same, and the little wizards were already used to it. After all, anyone who has seen the same scene for a whole school year will not be too surprised. Hey, Ryan, did you notice anything wrong? Kes sat next to Ryan and whispered mysteriously. The savior is missing, and there seems to be one missing Weasley. Ryan glanced at X and said with a smile. Kes brought trouble to himself and felt a little unhappy. What? You don't think you're the only one who discovered it, do you? Ryan nudged Dix with his elbow and said. Kes nodded depressedly. He didn't hear the little wizards around him discussing this matter, and thought he was the only one who discovered it. Look at the staff bench. Kes looked over, and then asked with some confusion, what's wrong? Didn't you notice that Dean Snape was missing? Ryan sighed, as if he was sighing because XX didn't notice that Snape was gone. But Dean Snape always arrives at the last minute. There is still some time now. Kes said doubtfully. He has experienced 4 sorting ceremonies. Ahem. Ryan coughed twice and stopped talking. Pfft. Beaver laughed from the side. Ryan, you don't believe Chris's lies, do you? Facing Ryan's confused look, Beaver told the whole story. Although Dean Snape always comes very late, he will never come this late. You. Ryan turned to look at Kes, but Kes looked down at the plate in front of him, as if there was something there. The 3 of them quarreled for a while, and then saw Professor McGonagall walking in with a team of little wizards. The little wizards looked at all this with curiosity, just like when their seniors were sorted for the first time. There were candles floating in the air, a starry sky-like ceiling, and many wizards wearing wizard robes and pointed hats around them. All of this made the freshmen realize that they had come to a different world. It was still the same old sorting ceremony, and the younger wizards watched it all with interest. Before, I was sitting on top, but now I am sitting below and looking at it, which is quite different. The senior wizards no longer have this idea. They have seen the branches too many times. At this time, they only care about one question, and that is, when can we start eating? Dumbledore seemed to have heard the thoughts of the young wizards. After the sorting ceremony, he did not say any nonsense. Instead, he stood up, waved his hand, and said the words that all the young wizards wanted to hear, eat it. In the surprised eyes of the little wizards who had just gone through the sorting ceremony, a lot of delicious food appeared on the plates in front of them. The aroma of the food made the little wizards who had been riding the train all afternoon salivate quickly, and then they began to join the army of grabbing food like their seniors. To be honest, the food at Hogwarts still tastes good, but it is a big pot of rice after all. Maybe other little wizards ate pretty well, but for Ryan, who was used to pudding craftsmanship, the food was still a bit uninteresting. However, Ryan was not so pampered that he couldn't even eat a bite, but it was inevitable to eat less. Mr. Potter still hasn't come back. I just heard that they were killed by the Whomping Willow. When Professor Snape rushed over, only his arms and 2 tattered robes were left. While saying at the end of the sentence, I couldn't help but shudder. How can? Before Ryan could finish his words, he was interrupted by Beaver's exclamation. This is impossible. Even if Dean Snape doesn't like Mr. Potter, he can't beat Mr. Potter and Mr. Weasley until their arms are left. This is Hogwarts. Then the little wizard next to Beaver exclaimed, "What? Dean Snape sent Potter to the Whomping Willow, and then watched him being beaten by the Whomping Willow, leaving only one piece. Ragged robe." Ryan listened helplessly to the increasingly outrageous rumors of the little wizards. After a while, the little wizards all began to discuss this matter. The sharp-eyed little wizard noticed that Professor McGonagall and Dean Dumbledore left the staff table one after another. Now, the little wizards were talking even more fiercely. Percy sat in his seat, a little restless. Even his usual favorite pudding, he now lost his appetite. Fred and George no longer had any intentions of playing pranks, and kept asking the little wizards around them about Ron and Harry. "Okay, kids. Mr. Potter and Mr. Weasley are fine, so don't worry too much. Just focus on the food in front of you. It's not a good habit to waste food." After saying that, Dumbledore winked playfully. After hearing this, Percy, Fred and George felt relieved and began to participate in the food grabbing. At the same time, Snape glanced down eerily. He had heard something when he came here just now. These boys described him as a big devil who did all kinds of evil. The most hateful thing is that the Slytherin boys are the same. Finally, the opening dinner came to an end with a heated discussion among the little wizards. The new little wizards were eye-opening. On the first day of school, a senior did such an exciting thing. In an instant, they were full of expectations for their future study career. Ryan also followed the Slytherin team to the Slytherin dormitory after 2 months of absence. His dormitory still looked the same as when he left it, except that there was a layer of dust on it. It seemed that Professor Dumbledore had told the house elves not to disturb him. Chapter 117. The next morning, when Ryan came to the restaurant to have breakfast, he saw Ron and Harry in the center, surrounded by stars. Judging from the smiles on their faces, they also enjoyed this feeling. Percy and Hermione were a little unhappy because Ron and Harry had deducted points from Gryffindor before school started. But fortunately, with the lessons learned from Ryan and Malfoy, the little wizards of Gryffindor selectively ignored this problem. Although even if not, there is a high probability that the little lions will not mention this issue. After all, in their view, an exciting experience is more important than anything else. "Ha, Ryan, you are here. Look, the deeds of the Savior are in the newspapers." Kes found Ryan, holding a roll of newspapers in his hand. Since forming a small team, Kes has developed the habit of reading newspapers every day. Before the intelligence system of your own organization was established, you could only extract information by reading newspapers. This is what Kers said. As he spoke, Kes took a donut and ate it. He also spread the newspaper on the table, revealing the headlines on the newspaper. Shock! The Savior actually did such a thing on the way to Hogwarts. Ryan looked at the editor, Rita Sky. Tisk. Ryan sighed softly and began to read the following content. The content is also in line with Rita Sky's consistent writing style, which is exaggerated and frivolous, and contains many fictional things. If you ask me, this editor Sky is really talented. Kes said with a smile, I believe she will be able to sell novels if she writes them. Okay, let's eat quickly. But it's strange to say that it obviously happened last night, but the newspaper will be out today. When did these wizards become so efficient at work? Ryan poured himself a glass of milk, and also poured a glass for X. The two picked up their glasses and clinked them with each other, as if they were drinking beer. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they fire you for stealing a car. It depends on how I deal with you then. You probably haven't thought about what happened when your father and I found out the car was gone. Feeling. There was a loud sound that shook the plates and spoons on the table. Kes was drinking milk at this time, and suddenly he was so frightened by the shouting letter that the milk spurted out of his nose. Ryan put down the cup in his hand with some luck. He was about to drink when he heard this huge sound. Mrs. Weasley's voice echoed in the restaurant, attracting the attention of all the little wizards. For a moment, there was no little wizard in the restaurant who spoke. It seemed like a long time passed before the sound ended. The roaring letter seemed to have exhausted its magic power and fell from the air, burning into a ball of flame. The little wizards continued to stare blankly for a while before coming back to their senses, each whispering to their friends. The first Gryffindor class this morning was herbology, with Hufflepuff. After finishing breakfast, Ryan said hello to Hermione and went to his classroom. Slytherin's first class was Charms, which he took with Ravenclaw. Professor Flitwick happily stood on the pile of books on the podium and looked at every little wizard who entered the classroom. "Ha, children, welcome. We will not teach new knowledge in this class. I know that little wizards cannot cast spells outside of school. This means that you will not be able to review our classes in the past 2 months. A spell learned in a year. But don't worry, our class is just for review." Professor Flitwick held the wand in his hand and accurately delivered the teaching aids to each little wizard. There are feathers, a cup covered in paint, a chopstick broken in half, and more. Feathers are used to cast levitation spells, paint-covered cups are used to cast cryoning spells and water-making spells, and broken chopsticks are used to cast repair spells. The little wizards happily looked at the teaching aids in front of them, although they had little confidence in their magic. But no matter what, practical classes are always fun. No little wizard wants to listen to a theory class that is smelly, long, and can easily make people fall asleep. For a time, the sound of chanting curses could be heard in the charms classroom. Ryan completed all the spells in the first time. For this, Professor Flitwick gave Slytherin 2 points. Nowadays, many professors have finally figured out that Ryan's strength cannot be matched by even 7th grade graduates, so the points awarded to Ryan have become less. Malfoy's spell casting speed is also very fast. It can be seen that he has been practicing at home for a long time during this summer vacation. In other words, the Slytherin snakes quickly completed the release of all spells. Because no matter what, they can cast spells at home during the summer vacation, and they must have cast spells at home. After half the class was over, only a few Muggle-born Ravenclaws were left who were still continuing their magic. These little wizards became a little impatient after seeing others stop. And it was precisely because of their impatience that the difficulty of their spell casting went up to another level. Children, relax, it doesn't matter even if it's a whole class. After all, our class is meant for practice, isn't it? Professor Flitwick encouraged. Okay, kids, don't just sit around. This is a good opportunity to practice spells. Using a wand to cast spells is nothing. Real magic masters will master the technique of wandless and silent spell casting. This requires you to have enough knowledge of spells. You have a lot of experience. If you want to learn this skill, I don't think you should just sit here. Professor Flitwick obviously knew the reason for the impatience of the young wizards, and thoughtfully solved the problem for them. At the end of Get Out of Class, all the little wizards successfully cast all their spells, which made Professor Flitwick very happy. Even when I left the classroom, I kept dancing unknown dances. After Ryan came out of the classroom, he walked directly to the classroom for the next class. Maybe it's because you have to take courses in the 3rd grade, so the 2nd grade courses are a little tight, as if you want to experience all the charm of magic in the 2nd grade. But it was obvious that the next lesson would not allow Ryan to appreciate the beauty of magic. A History of Magic, with Hufflepuff. Professor Bin's hypnotic sound once again showed its due strength. Except for Ryan, who used listening with earplugs, the other little wizards in the audience lay on the table and fell asleep. They didn't listen until the end of Get Out of Class during lunch. Wake up to temptation. After having lunch, Ryan and Hermione went to the Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom. Chapter 118. The Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom has long been filled with young wizards, and everyone is very interested in Professor Lockhart's class. Professor Quirrell made a mess of the Defense Against the Dark Arts class last year, which is the consensus of all the young wizards. But this year is different. Professor Lockhart's strength is recognized by every wizard, not to mention he has so many books. Therefore, the young wizards are looking forward to Professor Lockhart bringing some hope to this course that has been abandoned for a year. The little wizards sat on their seats and discussed with each other what interesting things Lockhart would tell them during this lesson. The moment the bell rang, Lockhart stepped into the classroom. Haha, hello, kids. Lockhart walked into the classroom and said with a smile, looking at the faces admiring him below. Ryan took Hermione and sat in the corner. Perhaps because of the existence of Ryan in this life, Hermione does not admire Lockhart as much as in the original book. At most, she only has some respect for Lockhart. Ryan was dazed below, but Hermione listened very seriously. Ryan. Hermione called out to Ryan in a low voice from the side. What's wrong? Ryan came back to his senses and looked at Hermione and asked. Hermione didn't answer, just handed over a piece of paper. What is this? Ryan took the paper handed over by Hermione with a confused look on his face. However, he soon knew what it was, Lockhart's Narcissism Questionnaire. How could I forget this? Reen was a little helpless. Although all these answers are in Lockhart's books, I'm sorry to say that Ryan has not read any of his books until now. The same goes for Hermione. During this summer vacation, the little girl would borrow 1 or 2 books from Ryan every week and return them after reading them. She had no time to read Lockhart's books. It's too bad that almost no one remembers that my favorite color is lilac. And I think a few of my classmates need to take a serious look at my book again. Lockhart flipped through the collected papers one by one, saying something from time to time. Soon, he finished turning over all the papers. I'm so disappointed. I don't think you read my books at all during the summer vacation. Lockhart held his head and showed his white teeth, but it doesn't matter, I believe you will definitely read my books this school year. I learned a lot of knowledge under his leadership. After all, I, Lockhart, am a third-class recipient of the Order of Merlin, an honorary member of the Alliance Against Dark Arts, and a 5-time winner of the Wizarding Weekly Most Charming Smile Award. After speaking, his teeth seemed to flash. Okay, I see that your basic knowledge is very poor, but don't worry, I will come to save you. In this lesson, we need to deal with some very evil things. Lockhart said as he picked up a cage covered with cloth from under the podium. Please don't be afraid, and please don't scream, it will anger them. Lockhart performed hard on the podium. Yes, that's right, it's the Cornish elf we just caught. Lockhart's voice was ups and downs, full of comedy. Pfft. This was the sneer from Seamus Finnegan. Lockhart looked at him with some displeasure and asked, What? Well, Professor Lockhart, they're not actually dangerous. Seamus laughed so hard that he couldn't breathe. That's not necessarily true. Well, since you think you can deal with them, let me see. No one could answer the paper, and Lockhart was already a little annoyed at Seamus' ridicule. When these green-skinned elves saw the cage being opened, they quickly got out one by one and wreaked havoc. The power of the Dragon Clan. Ryan secretly released an Aurum magic for himself. This magic can make the target generate a force unique to the Dragon Clan, which can frighten the other monsters. It has no effect on humans. Ryan did not input much magic power, and controlled the scope of the power to be able to cover himself and Hermione. Then he sat leisurely in his seat and watched the other little wizards being chased by these elves. Pescipixie Pesternomi! Lockhart shouted, waving his wand. However, it had no effect at all, and instead angered the elf. They snatched Lockhart's wand and threw it out the window. All petrified. Although she was curious as to why there were no elves to disturb herself and Ryan, Hermione still stood up and cast a petrifying spell to petrify all the elves flying in the air. The little girl had been waiting for Lockhart to take action from the beginning, but after seeing Lockhart's nonsense spell, the little girl was completely disappointed in Lockhart. Ha, yes, that's right, I just wanted to do that. Lockhart got out from under the podium, arranged his hair, and said with an awkward smile. Who is this classmate? Hermione Granger, Gryffindor. Hermione said with some displeasure. She suddenly felt that Lockhart was like a straw bag with only appearance. Yes, Gryffindor. What Miss Granger did was very correct. In fact, as soon as I wanted to do that, Miss Granger beat me to it. But this is not a big problem. I will not do it because of this. And I hate a little wizard who is pursuing college points. Lockhart stood on the podium, continued to maintain his warm smile and said, by the way, 5 points for Gryffindor. The little wizards who were huddled under the table secretly poked their heads out. After seeing that the elf was really killed by Hermione, they sat down one by one. Several little wizards picked up the petrified elf and sent it to the cage. Lockhart carefully counted the number of elves, and when he found that there were too many, he closed the cage door. Okay, children, please take out the book Walking with Trolls and I will tell you. Lockhart opened the book and began to tell the little wizard his adventure story. But none of the little wizards below were listening. All the little wizards were shocked by Hermione's petrification spell. Lockhart's face became more and more ugly, because he found that there were already young wizards below quietly discussing how bad this class was. Fortunately, the bell rang quickly, which made Lockhart and the little wizards breathe a sigh of relief. Okay, kids, we had a pleasant class. I know you are still thinking about continuing the class, but I have to say, get out of class is over. See you in the next class. After saying that, Lockhart left the classroom carrying the cage containing the elf. He was going to throw away the cage and throw it into the Forbidden Forest. But Lockhart soon thought of the monsters in the Forbidden Forest and changed his mind. It's better to leave it to Hagrid, he likes these things anyway. Chapter 119. I really doubt whether Lockhart's deeds are true or false. It seems that what he wrote is very true, but he behaved like a clown in class today. As Ryan walked down the corridor, Hermione kept talking about the defense against the dark arts lesson this afternoon. It can be seen that the little girl is very dissatisfied with the class this afternoon. He couldn't even cast a decent spell, and what's even worse is that the elf took away his wand so easily. Alas, I suddenly felt that Professor Quirrell is better. Well, Hermione actually started to miss Professor Quirrell, which shows how disappointed she is in Professor Lockhart. Suddenly, there was a burst of laughter from the front. A group of little wizards were lying on the window, pointing below, and constantly talking to the little wizards around them. Ryan and Hermione looked in the direction they were pointing and saw Lockhart looking for his wand in the grass downstairs. Hell, I really don't know why Professor Dumbledore would find such a person to teach the defense against the dark arts class. I heard that the professors in the previous few years were pretty good. Why did he become so terrible when I enrolled? Seeing Lockhart, Hermione whispered in Ryan's ear again. Ryan glanced at Hermione secretly and thought to himself, if the savior had not enrolled in school, then the story probably would not have developed like this. But at this time, Ryan also hated Lockhart, because Hermione had been whispering in his ears for a long time. The two came to the restaurant one after another. When they reached the door, Hermione stopped talking and entered the restaurant first. Ryan breathed a sigh of relief quietly, thankful for the great time that flowed to dinner time. Opening the door, the bustling atmosphere of the restaurant hit your face. The little wizards were all talking to their friends about Lockhart messing up the defense against the dark arts class this afternoon. However, Lockhart still has many fans that he has accumulated over the years. One party is the young wizard who took the class today, the other party is the young wizard who firmly believes that Lockhart is a powerful wizard, and the last party is here the little wizard wavering between the two sides. The three little wizards had a heated exchange in the restaurant. I don't know if it was because he was afraid of meeting Lockhart, but not a single professor showed up at the faculty table today. Ryan sat down at the Slytherin table, and XX and Beaver immediately Ryaned over. Hey, Ryan, I heard that Professor Lockhart messed up the defense against the dark arts class today, is it true? Kes sat down on Ryan's left side and asked. By the way, there is also Miss Granger. I heard that she was so powerful that she killed all the elves in Cornwall with a single petrification spell. Immediately afterwards, Beaver also sat down on Ryan's right side and looked at Ryan with the same curiosity. Damn it, can't you guys take a break? Ryan took a sip of tea and complained to Kes and Beaver. Damn it, do you know how long Hermione has been talking about this? From the end of Get Out of Class until now. My ears are almost calloused. So these things are all true. This is really big news. Beaver and Max looked very excited, and each of them started talking. I said, you are in 5th grade this year. With Lockhart's behavior, I think your defense against the dark arts exam in the OWL exam may be bad. Ryan reminded. Damn, I almost forgot about this. Fowlu slapped the table, attracting the attention of several young wizards around him. Biff, what are you doing? A little wizard asked curiously when he saw Bifur banging the table. Bifur walked over and told the little wizard about the situation. The little wizard also suddenly realized it, and then started talking to the next wizard. One passed to 2, and the other to 3. In a short time, the entire 5th grade students knew about the situation. These little wizards instantly became angry with each other. After all, this was a major event related to their future. Cutting off someone's wealth is like killing one's parents. This thing that blocks someone's future can be described as a blood feud. For a time, Lockhart's reputation was once again bad. But the little witches were still willing to continue to excuse Lockhart. After all, today is just the first class. After all the little wizards have taken a defense against the dark arts class, they probably won't think so. But Ryan still thought wrong. At this young girl's age, strength was not important to them at all. Being handsome is the most important thing. So a week later, even though all the young wizards had experienced the extremely bad defense against the dark arts class, Lockhart still had a lot of reputation among the students. Most of them were little witches and wizards who didn't like Lockhart, a slutty man. And Hermione became increasingly disgusted with Lockhart, who spoke exaggeratedly and liked to express himself, so much so that no girl in the dormitory was willing to talk to her, even though there was not much to say between the girls and Hermione. As a result, Hermione pestered Ryan even more. Ryan, how do you plan to refine the potion? Hermione asked curiously. This was discussed during the summer vacation. I have to go to Professor Snape to approve a note and apply for a classroom to be used as our laboratory. I think this is necessary. Ryan said that verbally, but in fact he hadn't gone to Snape yet. Hermione nodded, didn't say much, and continued to flip through the book in her hand. Powerful potion. This is the book where Hermione found the polyjuice potion in the original novel. The two stayed in the library until closing and then left the library. Once back in the Slytherin common room, Ryan heard Malfoy's voice. Ha ha ha, you haven't seen how ridiculous the expressions on the faces of the Gryffindor team are today. Malfoy's face was twisted, and he recounted today in front of several young wizards who had just entered school. What happened on the Quidditch pitch in the afternoon? And that Weasley, hell, is Weasley really a member of the 28 pureblood families? Why can't any member of the family even be issued a decent wand? Poor Weasley, he cast a spell with a broken wand and actually hit himself. He will probably have to stay in the school hospital for a day or two now. How pitiful. Malfoy looked worried, but the smile on his lips gave him away. Looking at the adoring looks of several young wizards, Malfoy felt great. Ryan glanced at Malfoy and went directly into his dormitory. As long as Malfoy doesn't mess with him, he won't be idle looking for trouble. Chapter 120. Ever since Hermione mentioned the matter of refining potions that day, Ryan went to Snape to ask for a approval note and obtained the right to use a small classroom. In fact, there are many small classrooms like Hogwarts, and most of them are used for students to form clubs. It was at this time that Ryan learned that Hogwarts had many clubs organized voluntarily by students. This small classroom is located on the 5th floor. Ryan and Hermione almost didn't find it when they went there because it was too remote. This was Snape's deliberate arrangement. He knew that the reason why Ryan asked him to find a classroom to refine the potion was entirely for Hermione's sake. So I simply found a remote classroom for Ryan on the 5th floor, a floor without classrooms, to avoid further friction between the two colleges. Ryan looked at the oil painting in front of him. If Snape hadn't given him a note saying that this was the entrance to the classroom, no one would have known there was a classroom here. Hermione followed the instructions on the note and tapped the sunset on the painting with her wand. The sun that had been hanging on the top of the mountain quickly set, revealing the keyhole behind her. Seeing this, Hermione inserted the key she got from Filch, and then turned it gently. The knight's armor statue as a decoration next to it began to move silently to the side, revealing the full room behind it. It's a dusty classroom. Ahem. Hermione kept waving her little hands in front of her nose, hoping to block some of the floating dust. When the dust slowly subsided, Hermione and Ryan walked into the classroom that already belonged to them. My God, this place hasn't been crying in more than 10 years. Hermione gently picked at the desk with her fingers and found that the dust on the desk was almost a millimeter thick. This is normal. Hogwarts is so big, there is always room for free. Well, don't complain, we still have a lot of work to do. Ryan shook his head, and then released a person in the classroom crying spell. In an instant, all the thick and stubborn dust disappeared, revealing the yellow desktop. But the next work will be very troublesome. At Hogwarts, it is actually not troublesome to apply for the right to use a classroom. You only need an approval note from the professor to go to Filch to get the key to the corresponding classroom. But after you get the key, the first thing you need to do is cry in the entire classroom. This can also be regarded as an exchange. The school will lend you the classroom to hold club activities, and accordingly, you need to tidy up the classroom. However, many students are happy to do this, because when tidying up the classroom, they may find some things left by their predecessors. This exciting feeling, similar to opening a blind box, constantly stimulates the little wizards in adolescence. Having said that, after crying the classroom, you need to take the tables and chairs in the classroom to the designated storage room. However, the school has regulations that the little wizards cannot cast spells in the corridor, so they can only move there slowly by themselves. This is a laborious job, and it is precisely because of this that a large number of young wizards who want to try opening blind boxes have been dissuaded. Fortunately, Ryan has a non-marking stretch bag, which is a great tool for transporting goods. After transporting the tables and chairs in the classroom to the storage room, Ryan moved the potion refining equipment in his dormitory to the newly crioned classroom. Then, the two people placed these things on the operating table one by one and arranged them neatly. There are still a lot of things missing. After the placement was completed, Ryan looked around and sighed. When he usually makes potions, because the space is too small, he just takes all the materials he needs directly from his pocket and does not set up a medicine cabinet. Moreover, he had previously dumped the remaining potion residue into the trash can and asked the house elves to help dispose of it. But now that the conditions have improved, it's natural that everything is ready, right? And the most important thing is that an explosion-proof system is required. Don't think that refining potions is safe. In fact, some potions can cause violent explosions if they go wrong. But today's laboratory is sufficient. So what should we do with this pile of stuff next? Hermione sat on a stool nearby and pointed to the pile of discarded items collected next to her. Disappearance spell. Ryan said tentatively. Hermione became interested. The vanishing curse could be considered a relatively advanced spell. Let me try. Looking at Hermione, who already had the wand in her hand, Ryan nodded. This is a question from the OWL exam that 5th grade students will take. Are you sure you have mastered it? Ha, of course, I'm making progress too, okay. Hermione chuckled and said proudly. But she also has something to be proud of. Disappeared without a trace. Hermione chanted the spell nervously, and most of the garbage on the ground disappeared. Seeing this scene, Hermione breathed a sigh of relief and glanced at Ryan with some pride. Ryan smiled at Hermione, then snapped his fingers, and the rest of the garbage disappeared. Hermione pursed her lips in frustration. The little girl seemed to have been hit hard. Okay, don't be unhappy. I believe that one day, you will be like me. Ryan touched Hermione's head, messing up the little girl's already fluffy hair. When I reach your current strength, you will definitely be stronger than now. Hermione was a little frustrated because she realized that she was telling a fact. Do you know the Achilles paradox? Ryan said, looking at Hermione. Certainly. Of course, the well-read Hermione knew about the Achilles paradox. Achilles is a hero who is good at running in ancient Greek mythology. In a race, suppose that his speed is 10 times that of the tortoise. The tortoise is 100 meters in front of him, and one person and one tortoise are racing at the same time. When Achilles ran 100 meters and reached the starting point of the tortoise climbed forward another 10 meters. When Achilles ran past these 10 meters, the tortoise crawled forward another meter. After Achilles ran this meter, the tortoise crawled forward another 1/10 of a meter. But this is different, Ryan. I am Achilles and you are the turtle, but the key is that you are 10 times faster than me. Are you calling me a turtle? Ryan felt that he could not let this topic continue. Oh my god, of course not. Hermione was also very smart, and she understood that Ryan wanted to end this topic. In fact, Hermione just wanted to vent. Anyone who keeps chasing a goal that can never be caught will be a little discouraged. Okay, why don't you give it a try first, the first potion in the new laboratory. Ryan placed the materials on the operating table and said seductively.